Hey guys, tonight we tumble back thousands of years to ancient Egypt, where the air smells like hot sand and donkey sweat, and your job is literally to move mountains of stone for someone else's eternal nap chamber. That's right, tonight we're going to find out why it absolutely unequivocally sucked to be a pyramid slave. You're not just time traveling, you're clocking in. Picture this. You're yanked from your dusty little village one morning by a tax collector who looks like he hasn't smiled since the Nile last flooded. Before you know it, you're herded into a line of other unlucky souls, all headed toward Giza, where a brand new pyramid is being built. You thought maybe it'd be like stacking blocks? Oh no, it's more like signing up for a lifetime of sweat, blisters, and someone shouting at you in a language you barely understand. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I always love seeing who's up past bedtime with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink against the blazing sun as you're pushed off a riverboat onto a dusty dock. The heat slaps you across the face like it holds a personal grudge. Sand gets into your mouth, your nose, your eyeballs. Basically anywhere it shouldn't be. You've got nothing on you except a rough linen loincloth and a vague idea that you're here to help build something big. Spoiler, it's bigger than your future prospects. A scribal overseer greets your group, not with a handshake, but with a tally stick. One nod from him and your name disappears from your village records. You're now property of Pharaoh Inc. You want to ask questions, but nobody else is talking. Just tired eyes, sunburned cheeks, and shoulders hunched from journeys too long to remember. They march you through an open-air camp the size of a small city. Everywhere people are hauling rocks, shaping mud bricks, or doing things that involve lots of shouting and way too much lifting. You catch the sour stench of sweat and fish. The Nile isn't far, but it offers little comfort. This place feels like the back end of civilization. You're herded toward a central office of sorts, a mud brick structure with slates nailed into the walls listing tasks, deliveries, and names in hieroglyphs you can't read. Your stomach churns. A man nearby whispers, "First day?" You nod. He grins, missing half his teeth. Don't worry. After a week, you forget what clean feels like. They assign you to Quarry Group C. Translation: you're on stone hauling duty. That's right. You get to spend the next few years lugging chunks of limestone and granite that weigh more than your extended family. And if you were hoping for a short commute, sorry. The worksite is uphill, through sand, and your shoes were considered optional. Some modern historians argue whether workers like you were truly enslaved or just brutally overworked laborers. But standing in that line, watching another guy, faint from sunstroke, the difference feels pretty academic. Later, they escort you to your dorm. And oh, what a luxury suite it is. A narrow mud brick barrack crammed with 20 men and one mat per 4 bodies. If you want a breeze, you'll need to argue with the flap of cloth they call a window. There's no pillow, no blanket, just the vague hope that maybe tonight your snoring neighbor won't roll over and elbow your ribs. As night creeps in, the temperature nosedives. Nobody warned you that Egyptian nights get cold. You shiver beside strangers trying to tune out the groans of aching bodies and occasional coughs that sound suspiciously wet. You think about your family back home, your younger brother chasing goats, your mother kneading barley dough. You wonder if they miss you, or if they've already marked you as lost to the sands. The only thing more terrifying than being here is the idea that this might be your best option. Now and then, someone from the outside stumbles into camp, usually a visiting official or a priest blessing the site. You watch them glide by with their fragrant oils and golden trinkets like gods among the grime. One even throws you a crust of bread. You're not sure if it's a kindness or a test. As the stars come out, brighter here than anywhere you've ever seen, you lie awake, exhausted but too wired to sleep. A man nearby mutters about dreams of escape. Another scoffs. Desert'll eat you. Same as this place, just quicker. You close your eyes, and the image of that monstrous pyramid in progress haunts your mind. It's not even halfway done, and already it looks eternal. You wonder how many bodies it will take to reach the top, and if yours will be one of them. And so begins your life as one of thousands, nameless, expendable, and sunburned beyond repair, working on the most iconic gravesite in human history. This isn't glory, it's gravel, grit, and ground-up dreams. But hey, at least you're part of something big, right? You wake up before the sun does. Not that you were really asleep. It's hard to drift off when the guy next to you snores like an old camel and someone else spent half the night mumbling about jackals stealing souls. A bell clanks in the distance, and like clockwork, the groans begin. Bodies creak to life. Around you, aching limbs protesting another day in this never-ending sand trap. You drag yourself up and shuffle toward the mess tent, or more accurately, the mess tarp. Breakfast is a slosh of barley gruel served in a bowl that smells faintly of last night's fish stew. You choke it down because if you don't, you won't last past the first rock haul. The beer is warm, flat, and tastes like it's trying to remember what grain was. But it's packed with calories and weirdly considered nutritious. Ancient Egyptians actually thought of this as a proper breakfast combo. Historians still argue whether it was better than dying. You overhear an argument between two workers. One swears up and down that their uncle came here voluntarily for the pay and extra rations. The other rolls his eyes. Voluntary? More. Like show up or we tax your goats into oblivion. And honestly, that seems to be the vibe. Technically, you're a worker, not a slave. But with no way to leave, no wages you can actually spend, and no idea when this job ends. What's the difference? You trudge toward the work site with the others, stepping over donkey dung and dry bones. That's not a metaphor. There are actual bones, probably from old meals. Probably. No one talks much during the march, conserving breath for the hours of labor ahead. You glance up at the massive pyramid looming in the haze. It looks closer than it is. They always do. Like a mirage that keeps shifting, always just out of reach. You've been assigned to rope crew today, which sounds like it could involve knots or boat stuff. Nope. It means you help drag huge limestone blocks across wooden sleds, using ropes that fray faster than your nerves. The tools are simple, if you can even call them that. Crude copper, chisels, wooden mallets, sled runners greased with... Wait, is that animal fat? Yes. Yes, it is. One guy swears it's cow dung this week because the grease supply ran low. This is your freedom. You're not chained. No one's whipping you yet, but you're also not going anywhere. Overseers patrol with sticks and sharp eyes, barking orders if you so much as pause to wipe sweat from your eyes. They wear crisp linen robes and always look suspiciously clean. You, on the other hand, are pretty sure your skin is permanently coated in dust, sweat, and despair. You get a 10-minute break after every 3 hours of hauling. That's long enough to sit, guzzle water, and contemplate the meaninglessness of life before it's back to the grind. A friend beside you, missing half an ear from a work accident, jokes that the pyramid is actually a massive tomb for your will to live. And speaking of tombs, you're reminded daily that you're not building something for the living. You're helping immortalize a dead guy who hasn't even died yet. That's some next-level job security for the pharaoh. He gets a house for the afterlife while you don't even have a cot. Mid-morning, a young teen joins your rope team. He's skinny, scared, and clearly not built for hauling stone. He winces every time he pulls. You shoot him a sympathetic glance, but you both know sympathy doesn't move limestone. A few of the older workers try to help him adjust his grip. Others mutter about babies wasting space. By midday, the sun is right overhead, turning your world into a slow roast. Your back aches, your hands are raw, and every breath tastes like burning sand. You spot vultures circling overhead and wonder if they're just bored or waiting for someone to drop. In quieter moments, someone always has a rumor to share. Today's favorite? That a pyramid worker found a hidden chamber, cursed and filled with gold, and disappeared the next day. You laugh, but not too loud. Curses are no joke out here. Even the skeptics avoid speaking ill of the gods just in case. Historians believe that despite the harsh conditions, pyramid workers sometimes formed real communities. Friendships even. You see glimmers of that. Someone handing over a half onion. Ration when another guy collapses. A quick shoulder rub between hauls. Shared jokes in the face of shared misery. It's not paradise, but it's something. The day ends not with a whistle or horn, but with a grunt from your overseer and a vague hand wave. Your legs tremble as you walk back to camp. Every part of you throbs. You feel like your body's been used as a practice slab for stonemasonry. And yet there's a weird sense of accomplishment. You moved literal tons today. Not everyone can say that. Dinner is more gruel, slightly warmer, somehow less appealing, but you're too tired to complain. You hear a lute playing faintly from another part of camp, someone trying to bring music to the muck. You lie down on the same scratchy mat, shoulder to shoulder with strangers who are slowly becoming less strange. As your eyes close, Someone utters from the dark, "If the pharaoh doesn't die soon, I might just fake a funeral." You chuckle, and it hurts. Everything hurts. But for now, you're still here. The first thing you feel is pain. Not dramatic, scream-worthy pain, just the slow, grinding ache of muscles that were never meant to pull stones the size of small elephants. Your back whines, your feet feel like they've walked to Nubia and back, and even your eyelids ache. You consider faking sick, but remember that the last guy who tried that was reassigned to latrine duty. You get up. Today starts like every other day. A long line for lukewarm barley sludge and stale bread that tastes like sadness. You chew mechanically the same way you'll drag stone later. Without joy, just momentum. You drink your morning beer and try not to gag. Technically, it's packed with calories, which is the only reason it exists. It's also mildly alcoholic, which explains why no one really complains. Your breath fogs slightly in the morning chill. It won't last. Within an hour, the heat will slam back down like a vengeful god. The desert doesn't do moderation. It's either freezing or frying. You miss the in-between. You head toward the central yard, where the work crews gather. There's a new face among the overseers. A wiry man with sharp eyes and a shaved head who immediately starts pacing with the energy of someone who enjoys yelling for sport. He's dressed better than anyone should be out here, and he smells like he's recently bathed, which makes him automatically suspicious. You're reassigned to the West Trench crew, lucky you. That's the group working on leveling the bedrock. A task that involves long hours of chipping away at unforgiving stone using tools that seem to resent you. The copper chisels dull quickly, and every few minutes you're reshaping them with a pounding stone just to get another 5 minutes of semi-effective scraping. And here's where it gets worse. You're barefoot. Most of the workers are. Sandals are technically issued, but good luck getting your size. And even if you do, the thin leather wears down fast. So you learn to wrap your feet in linen strips and pray they hold up. Spoiler alert, they won't. As you work, you glance around at the men beside you. One guy's got a back so bent he looks permanently folded. Another has wrapped both hands in strips of cloth stained with red and dust. Still, they chip away, hour after hour. And so do you. You're not chained. There's no metal collar around your neck. But you feel it all the same, that invisible leash of obligation, debt, fear, or fate. Historians debate whether pyramid builders were enslaved or just very unlucky citizens fulfilling national duty. You don't really care what they call it. You're here, swinging a dull chisel at unbreakable stone, and either way, you're not free. During a rare break, you sit in the shallow shade of a scaffold and glance out across the site. Thousands of people move like ants, pushing sleds, hauling rope, shouting over the din. It's organized chaos, and somehow it works. You've heard whispers that some people up top actually get paid in goods or land back home. But you're not at the top. You're not even in the middle. You're in the dirt. And yet, get this, there's a theory floating around that some workers were proud of their role here. That being part of the pharaoh's eternal legacy meant something. You try to imagine feeling that. Mostly you feel sore and kind of betrayed by your own spine. You catch another odd moment. One of the scribes is walking through your trench, noting things on a wax tablet. He's not yelling, just observing. He stops to speak to a worker with a swollen foot. They exchange quiet words. You strain to hear, but they're too far away. The man limps off, not to the barracks, but toward a tent with the blue-checked flag. Medical. Turns out there is a medical tent. Who knew? And now a weird fact. Ancient Egyptian medics believed in both physical treatments and magical incantations. So if your arm's broken, they'll give you a splint and whisper to ward off evil spirits. You're not sure if it works, but if someone wants to chant over your blisters, you won't say no. By late afternoon, your trench has barely changed. You've chipped away maybe a few inches. It's like trying to dig a swimming pool with a spoon. And all the while, the pyramid looms nearby, casting a long, perfect shadow, like it's watching you fail in style. You remember a joke someone told yesterday. The pharaoh wanted his tomb close to the gods, so we built it one body at a time. You didn't laugh then, but now, with your hands bleeding and the sun licking your neck, it hits different. As you head back to camp, a guy ahead of you collapses, just drops face first in the sand. 2 others move to lift him, but the overseer waves them off. He'll get up, he says. If he doesn't, he's not coming back anyway. He does get up eventually, but slower, shakier. You wonder how many more falls it'll take. Dinner is more of the same. Gruel, beer, sleep. But tonight there's a small surprise. Someone managed to snag a few cloves of garlic. They're sharp, pungent, and glorious. You chew slowly, savoring, each bite like it's dessert. It's the first moment of pleasure you've felt in days. As the stars rise and the barracks settle into their usual chorus of snores and coughs, you lie back on your scratchy mat. Your fingers twitch, still remembering the rhythm of stone against stone. You close your eyes and wonder if your children, if you ever get the chance to have any, will know you were part of something this big. Probably not. But you do. And that will have to be enough. You wake to the unmistakable smell of sweat, smoke, and dust, all baked into the air like it's part of the desert's natural scent profile. Your mouth feels like someone stuffed it with linen overnight, and your stomach growls so loudly that the guy next to you grunts in annoyance and rolls over. There's no bell this morning, no shouted orders. Just the knowledge that if you don't get up and join the work crew soon, they might send someone to motivate you. And if you think sore muscles are bad, try motivation by stick. You eat your usual bowl of barley sludge, but this morning, it's grittier than usual. You crunch something that might be sand, might be beetle parts, you don't ask. Your beer tastes faintly of mildew. You consider this a low point. Then you remember, today is hauling day again. You're reassigned to ramp duty. Sounds noble, right? Like you'll be doing geometry with ropes. Nope. You're one of dozens who'll help push and pull a sled loaded with a multi-ton block of limestone up a massive, sloped ramp. It's the pyramid's version of a stairmaster, except you don't get to stop and the machine is a block that wants to kill you. You approach the ramp and are hit by the sheer size of it. It's not some dainty slope. It's a long, steep monster coated in sand and slick with water or fat, depending on the day. Today it's water. Good, because fat days smell like a failed barbecue. The sled is already loaded, ropes coiled at the base, waiting for teams to grab and start the long, agonizing haul. The ropes cut into your palms almost instantly. Your feet dig into the wet sand, slipping every few steps. Sweat starts pouring down your back before the sled has moved more than a few inches. It takes 30 of you to move one block. 30 men, grunting, growling, gasping, all leaning their entire bodies into this inanimate boulder that seems actively resistant to progress. Halfway up, someone stumbles. The sled jolts, jerking the ropes. You feel the burn in your shoulder. As the tension shifts, a guy on the far left drops the rope and yells in pain. Something popped in his wrist. He limps away without waiting for permission. No one stops him. If your arm's useless, you're just another mouth to feed. You keep pulling over and over. Minutes stretch into hours. The sun climbs higher. So do the flies. They swarm your face, your neck, your ears. You can't swat them away. Your hands are busy not dying. You find yourself making little deals with the gods. Let me survive this load and I won't curse the pharaoh today. Then you curse him anyway. Softly, under your breath, just enough to feel rebellious. You reach the top eventually. The sled slams into place on a platform, ready for masons to shape it into yet another piece of the giant tomb. You stumble away, arms shaking, chest heaving, and collapse under a thin scrap of shade. A boy brings you a cup of water. You almost cry, but you're too dehydrated for tears. And here's the thing. No one's entirely sure how the ramps were arranged. Historians still argue whether they were straight, zigzagging, or even spiraled around the pyramid. You don't really care. You just know it's steep, endless, and unforgiving. All theories feel equally miserable when you're on the ground with sand in your eyes and your lungs screaming for mercy. In one corner of the ramp platform, a strange ritual is unfolding. A priest in white linen sprinkles something over a stone block, some kind of oil, you think, and murmurs a blessing. You've seen it before. It's meant to appease the gods so they accept the pyramid's offerings, but you're also pretty sure the real goal is to keep the stones from cracking during the dry season. Holy lubrication. Divine duct tape. Meanwhile, a fellow hauler whispers a new rumor into your ear. They say the pharaoh's got a second tomb, hidden under the Nile, just in case this one doesn't impress the gods. You snort. He better. Hope it floats. Your break ends and you're sent back down to repeat the process. Same ramp, new block. Your legs don't even feel like yours anymore. Just levers that happen to be attached to your screaming torso. At some point, one of the scribes approaches, tablet in hand. He asks your name. You give it, confused. He nods and scribbles something. Maybe it's a performance note. Maybe you're being recommended for a different task. Maybe you're just being recorded for body count. There's no way to know. You almost ask, but the look in his eye says don't, so you don't. Sometime later, a runner brings word. 2 men died on a nearby team, crushed when a sled tilted and a block rolled off. There's no ceremony, no pause. Their bodies are taken away quietly, and the stone is reloaded onto a new sled. Work doesn't stop. Ever. The pyramid waits for no one. As the sun begins its slow descent, turning the ramp gold and blood red, you finally drag your last block into place. You're drenched in sweat, covered in grime, and utterly spent. But something strange happens. The crew starts to cheer. A full block tier has been completed today, an entire layer of the pharaoh's resting place. For a second, it almost feels like pride. It passes quickly. Back at camp, you eat your gruel in silence. The mood is heavy. Not from the deaths, those happen, but from the sheer weight of the day. You slump against the wall of the sleeping hut and stare up at the stars. They're the same stars your ancestors saw, the same ones the pharaoh will be buried under, and the same ones you might die beneath if the next stone slips. But they're also weirdly comforting, like distant witnesses to your suffering. You let the night wash over you and tell yourself, only another 1,000 blocks to go. Your eyelids are gummy with sand and sleep when the distant clang of a copper bell yanks you from your dream, which, for once, wasn't about hauling stones. You dreamed of floating on the Nile in a papyrus boat, the breeze cool, the water gentle. It was the nicest 5 seconds of your week. But too bad. You've got a new assignment today. You're on quarry crew. You don't know whether to be grateful or horrified. On one hand, no ramps. On the other, you've heard rumors. The quarries are deep, hot, and echo with curses and pickaxe blows. That's where the stone is born. Huge chunks hacked from the earth's bones before being dragged across the sands to the pyramid site. You board a sled caravan just after a bite of dry bread and a few gulps of lukewarm beer. The sled is pulled by oxen and creaks with every lurch. As you cross the arid stretch toward the quarry, the land opens up like a cracked bowl, revealing the sheer cliffs and dusty craters where dozens of men already chip away in rhythmic, miserable unison. The quarry isn't a single pit, but a labyrinth of channels and scars in the bedrock. Limestone here is plentiful, but that doesn't make it easy. It's hard, unpredictable, and stubborn. You're handed a pick and shown to your spot, a little groove on a rising wall that you're expected to turn into a block about the size of a kitchen table, give or take. The overseer grunts, 3 hands thick, 5 long, 6 wide, cut clean, don't crack it. You stare at the rock. It stares back. You've never hated an object more. The first swing of your pick bounces off with a dull thud. Dust poofs into your nose. Your arm vibrates like a broken lyre string. You glance at the guy next to you who's already carving a neat groove. Been doing this 20 years, he mutters. Start shallow. Respect the grain. You nod, as if that means anything to your aching shoulder. By mid-morning, you've carved a few inches. Your hands are blistered, your back stiff. There's a constant hum of men grunting, tools clanging, rocks shifting. Occasionally someone shouts, usually because a piece cracked wrong or worse, broke entirely. If that happens, the block is useless. The work begins again. There's a funny little fact you learned from an older worker. Sometimes the best way to cut stone isn't brute force, but wooden wedges. You soak them in water, jam them into small cracks, and wait. The wood swells and pop, the stone splits, it feels like magic. Or at least less exhausting science. You try it. Wedge, water, wait. Pop. It works. You feel a tiny flicker of triumph. Then you remember you've got to do this 20 more times before lunch. And even with the tricks, quarrying is brutal. You're constantly covered in chalky dust that clings to your skin, creeps into your lungs, coats your tongue. You cough often. Everyone does. Some older men hack like they've been choking for years. Quarry lungs, they say. Stone dust's better at killing than spears. There's no shade, of course, just a few patched cloths strung between poles, and if you linger there too long, someone will nudge you out. One guy's rigged a makeshift headscarf from his old linen belt. Another has rubbed his face with crocodile fat to keep the sun off. Hey, desperate times. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians actually used crocodile dung as sunscreen or just in weird fertility rituals. Either way, it smells terrible, and you're not about to try it. Lunch arrives in baskets, stale bread, onions, and, if you're lucky, a dried fig. You sit on the edge of the quarry wall, legs dangling, chewing slowly while watching a team struggle to maneuver a half-freed block onto a sled. It teeters, threatening to roll. The foreman bellows and 6 men heave it upright with a mix of brute force and prayer. Someone beside you says, "They say one of these blocks cracked in half last." Weak. Landed on a guy's foot. He pauses. And then his foot was a pancake. You nod solemnly. You've seen worse. Last season, a man fell into a trench and vanished beneath falling rubble. They say his ghost still haunts the edge of the quarry. Not in a scary way, just sighing a lot and whispering. Still waiting to finish my shift. By the time the sun dips low, you've managed to carve out 2 full blocks. They're measured, marked, and ready to be hauled away. You ache everywhere, including muscles you didn't know you had. You think about asking to be reassigned back to ramp duty, then laugh bitterly. There is no good job, only slightly different flavors of pain. Before leaving, you pass a line of oxen being watered at a trough. One licks your hand absently. You stare into its eyes and whisper, "We're both prisoners here, huh?" The ox snorts. Back at camp, you notice something strange. A new cart has arrived, filled with bundles of fresh linen and what looks like dried fish. Apparently, a high priest made a big donation to boost morale. You get 1 strip of linen and a fishtail. It's not much, but you feel like royalty. A fellow worker holds his dried fish up like a trophy. Better than beer soup. That night, your arms buzz with fatigue. Your ears still ring with the clang of pickaxes. You lie on your mat and stare at the rafters, listening to the soft chorus of exhausted breathing around you. Somewhere outside, a desert wind whistles through the stones like a lullaby or a warning. You close your eyes and dream again, this time not of boats but of your block. Perfect edges, smooth lines glowing in the sun as it takes its place in the Grand Pyramid. And maybe, just maybe, you whisper to yourself, the pharaoh will thank you in the afterlife. But probably not. You don't remember falling asleep. 1 minute your body is throbbing in a dozen different spots, and the next, you're being poked in the ribs with a stick. Not a big one. Just a polite jab to say, "Congratulations, you didn't die overnight. Now go carry some things." Today, you're rotated again, this time to mortar duty. If hauling stone is the brawn and quarrying is the grind, mortar work is the mess. Your job? Make and deliver the sticky gunk that holds pyramid blocks together. It's like being a baker, if the dough was made of powdered limestone, sand, clay, water, and disappointment. You're handed a giant paddle and pointed toward a pit. Inside, a knee-deep slurry of goo. The smell is complicated, kind of like wet pottery mixed with river mud and just a hint of foot. Your team stands in a circle around the mixing pit, bare feet slapping against the muck, stirring with long-handled tools. This isn't just work. It's an ankle workout and a full-body endurance test. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians used gypsum or clay as the base for this mortar. Some say they even snuck in ground-up brick from older buildings. You'd believe it. This stuff feels like it could glue a camel to a wall. After what feels like a full workout session, you scoop buckets of the mix into leather pouches, sling them over your shoulders, and start the long, sweaty hike up to the pyramid's rising skeleton. The structure's massive at this point, easily hundreds of feet high, and climbing it with 2 sacks of sticky sludge strapped to you. That's not a commute. It's a punishment. The staircase is carved from temporary limestone blocks, rough, uneven, and absolutely designed to sprain ankles. You concentrate on each step, because if you fall, you're either cracking your skull or covering a sacred tomb in wet paste. Neither earns you a promotion. As you near the current working tier, the shouting begins. Not angry shouting, coordinated, yelling, like a conductor barking orders at an orchestra of overworked masons. Men with tools are ready and waiting. As soon as your pouches hit the ground, they scoop up handfuls and start spreading the mortar with broad copper spatulas, slathering it onto the base of each stone, like icing on an enormous, joyless cake. You're about to turn around for another load when a master builder waves you over. He lifts your hand and sniffs it. "Too much sand," he mutters. "Go back. Thinner mix. Less grit." You resist the urge to tell him exactly where he can put his grit, and instead jog back down. Your calves scream. Your knees file complaints. But this is how pyramid precision works. A perfect bond between thousands of giant stones, held together by exact ingredients in the perfect ratio. One wrong mix, and a whole corner could start slipping. They say that's what happened with the bent pyramid. Bad math or a poor foundation. No one wants a repeat. You return to the mixing pit and adjust the recipe. Less sand, more clay, a pinch of Nile magic. The overseer nods. You carry it up again. This time, no complaints. Just a grunt. High praise by pyramid standards. Between deliveries, you overhear workers arguing about the strange black stone found deeper in the quarries. Smooth, shiny and hard as a god's forehead. Some say it's cursed. Others call it basalt and think it's used for special inscriptions. One guy swears the pharaoh wants to line his burial chamber floor with it. Because what's the afterlife without some fancy flooring? You chuckle, then nearly trip over a chisel. By midday, the sun has turned the mortar pits into steamy soup pots. Your tunic is soaked through, your hair plastered to your skull. One worker tries to cool off by wiping his face with a damp rag, but it only smears white streaks across his cheeks like some tragic warrior. You look like a ghost, someone says. He raises his arms dramatically. I am the spirit of crushed dreams and sticky toes. It's the hardest part of the day, when time slows down and the sun refuses to budge from its blazing throne. Every load feels heavier. Every stair seems taller. You start having strange thoughts like, what if we're not building a tomb? What if it's just a massive prank and inside it's full of grain? Someone drops a bucket. Mortar spills across the stone and starts drying immediately. You all rush to scrape it up before it hardens. That stuff becomes stone again faster than you'd think. Another worker jokes, maybe this whole pyramid's made of dried mortar accidents. Everyone laughs, a little too hard. When jokes are your only comfort, they become sacred. As the light finally begins to tilt toward late afternoon, the mood shifts. Fewer trips, slower pace. The masters begin measuring new placements. You get a moment to rest. You lean against a half-set stone, feeling its warmth on your back, and look out across the desert. The camp sprawls below. The Nile sparkles in the distance. Somewhere, someone's playing a flute. You close your eyes and breathe. Then you smell something. Smoke. A small fire has broken out near the storage tents. Someone dropped a hot coal from the cooking brazier. It's quickly doused, but not before you and two others are ordered to haul buckets to the site. You jog there and back, lungs heaving, wondering if anything in this job doesn't involve carrying something heavy for someone else's problem. By sunset, the mortar pits are dry. You wash your legs in a trough, scrubbing caked muck from your shins. Your feet are stained white and feel like bricks themselves. A child runs past, chasing a goat. You remember briefly that life exists outside this endless construction zone. Dinner is better than usual. Dates, lentils, and actual salted fish. Someone plays a rhythm on an upside-down bucket. Others clap. It's the closest thing to joy you've seen in days. You even join in, slapping your bowl in time. That night you lie in your hut and dream you're back in the mixing pit. But instead of mortar, it's a pool of milk and honey. You float in it, weightless, while the pharaoh himself fans you with a palm leaf. You wake up stuck to your mat. Your body wakes up before your mind does. It's just muscle memory now. The shuffle toward the water basin, the splash to the face, the stretch that feels more like a controlled collapse. Today, you get pulled aside by a runner, a younger worker with fast feet and a big mouth. New. Orders, he says, panting. You're on sled duty, block hauling. You stare at him blankly. That's not new. But the look on his face says it's not just hauling today. It's something special. Turns out your squad has been assigned to transport a particularly massive stone, one of the core blocks destined for the inner chamber of the pyramid. It's longer, wider, and way, way heavier than anything you've hauled before. When you finally see it, resting like a smug monster on its transport sled, your knees buckle a little just from looking at it. Hauling this beast won't be done by 10 or even 20 men. It takes a full team of 60, roped and staggered like ants around a feast. The sled rests on long wooden planks soaked with water, an ancient trick to reduce friction. Historians still argue whether Egyptians used water or some kind of oil to help move these stones, but you can confirm, water works, kind of. When you don't use enough, the sled screeches like a cursed harp and barely moves. The lead puller, a hulking man with thighs the size of amphoras, bellows the call, "Heave!" You dig in, rope against your shoulder, heels sliding in the mud, lungs straining. The sled jerks forward, groans, and grudgingly lurches ahead. You are not walking. You are suffering forward in unison. The worst part? The stone is going uphill, toward the base ramp. The whole slope is lined with wooden beams and mud brick tracks, all slippery from spilled water. One misstep, and someone's going to become one with the pyramid's foundation, forever. Someone in the back sings a rhythmic chant to keep the group moving. It's got no real lyrics, just vowel sounds and a steady beat. But it helps. Left foot, right foot, pull, grit in your teeth, sweat in your eyes. A beetle crawls up your neck and you let it. Priorities. At the halfway point, one of the oxen tethered to the front collapses. It's done. You feel a pang. Not sadness, but envy. A replacement is trotted in while the rest of you pant under. What little shade a canvas awning provides. Someone hands you a date. You eat the whole thing, pit and all. A middle-aged man near you murmurs, "Did you hear about the brick counter?" You blink. "The what?" He nods solemnly. "There's a guy whose whole job is counting bricks, that's it. He stands there with a stick and a wax board and tallies. He gets better rations than we do. You consider changing careers, or at least befriending this mythical math wizard. Once the sled reaches the staging area at the base of the pyramid, it has to be transferred to a steeper ramp made of compacted earth and lined with logs. It's angled just enough to make you question all of your life decisions. A team of engineers stands by with measuring ropes and alignment rods. You think they're magicians or sadists. Here comes the riskiest part, the big pull. Teams rotate. To the front lines. Ropes tightened, men spaced. The signal comes. "Pull!" You scream back, lunging forward like a man trying to outrun his own shadow. The sled groans, shifts, and begins to climb. Then, it slips. Just a foot, but the sound, the bone-deep scrape of stone against wood, is enough to send panic rippling through the team. A wedge is jammed under one sled runner, halting the slide. You exhale, slowly. Then, a strange moment. You spot a boy near the edge. Of the ramp, maybe 12, holding a bowl of water. He's not working. He's watching. His eyes wide, his mouth slightly open. Maybe a scribe's apprentice or the son of an overseer. For a second, you imagine what he sees. Dozens of sweating, groaning bodies dragging a mountain through the dust. Living machines. You hate that you're part of this miracle, and also a little proud. As the sled finally inches over the crest, cheers erupt. You fall to your knees, gasping, skin bright with sun and effort. Someone claps you on the back. "Still, alive," he says. You nod, unable to answer. Lunch is delayed, but nobody cares. The job is done, and that's what matters. There's a strange camaraderie in shared suffering. It bonds you like mortar, except more permanent. Later, you overhear a conversation between two officials. They're talking about astronomy and how the pyramid's base lines up almost perfectly with the cardinal points. You'd heard rumors of this, how the whole structure is aligned with the stars. The northern shaft, one says, might point directly to Thuban, the pole star back then. You stare up at the sky, trying to find it. The idea that this whole pile of stones is built to talk to the heavens? It's absurd. It's brilliant. It makes your sore arms feel slightly more poetic. Dinner is barley stew and roasted garlic, served with a hard laugh and a joke about oxen. You don't remember the punchline, but you laugh anyway. Someone in your bunk whispers that Pharaoh himself might visit the site soon. You're not sure if that's exciting or terrifying. You hope he doesn't inspect the sled ramp. It still smells like fear and donkey sweat. That night you dream that the pyramid is alive, that it's growing slowly with each block you place. It hums beneath your feet. In the dream, the stone you dragged today is part of its beating heart. You wake up with sand in your mouth. You're dreaming of swimming, floating effortlessly down the Nile on a palm raft, when a horn blares in your ear. Not a real one, just a reed whistle blown way too close to your face by a laughing runner. "Up," he shouts, before sprinting off like he's got a personal vendetta against your sleep. You groan and sit up. Everything hurts again, but differently than yesterday. That's the thing about pyramid labor. Each day finds new muscles to punish. Today, you're reassigned. No stone hauling, no mortar mixing. You're headed inside the pyramid itself. Sounds like a promotion until you realize what it actually means. You're crawling into narrow tunnels, chiseling, shaping, and clearing debris in the least comfortable place on Earth. The structure towers above you like a divine giant made of sun-baked resentment. You walk past overseers who mutter to each other while scanning clay tablets. A supervisor shouts, "Shaft team, to the king's chamber!" You shuffle into a line and descend into the opening at the base of the pyramid's north face. The tunnel narrows fast. Soon you're hunched over, duck-walking through limestone corridors that seem designed by someone with a vendetta against spines. The air is stale, thick with dust and something vaguely metallic. Your torch sizzles, casting dancing shadows on walls carved with red guidelines. Historians still argue whether these shafts were ceremonial or functional. Were they meant to ventilate, or to guide the pharaoh's soul to the stars? You're Not sure either, but one thing's clear. They don't guide your soul anywhere pleasant. Your job is scraping and smoothing the inner surfaces of the shaft walls, making way for decorative blocks and passages. You use a copper chisel and a round stone mallet, both of which look like they were forged by someone having a very bad day. The sound, ping, ping, scrape, is a lullaby of misery. Your team leader tells a joke to lighten the mood. Why did the overseer break up with his girlfriend? She couldn't handle his block issues. It's terrible. You laugh anyway. Dust gets in your throat. You cough so hard your ears pop. Midway through the morning, something strange happens. One of the workers behind you taps a section of the wall and it echoes. Hollow. You all freeze. Hollow means cavity. Cavity means secrets. A supervisor is called. He pokes at the wall with a bronze probe, mutters something in Old Egyptian and shakes his head. Keep moving. We finish what we see. Still, the mood changes. What's behind that wall? A hidden chamber, a treasure vault, or just a pocket of air waiting to collapse and bury you? You don't ask. You go back to scraping. Hours blur. You're hunched so long your back develops its own opinions about life. You share stale figs with a boy no older than 12. He's part of the torch crew, responsible for keeping the narrow passage lit. You ask him why he's here. My father died building the mastaba. He shrugs. I take his place. There's no drama in his voice, just facts. It's how things work here. By noon, the tunnel is fully shaped. The shift lead measures the height and width with a string plumb and wax tablet. Off by a handspan, he mutters. You sigh. That means rework. That means chiseling stone again, but this time with the ghost of disappointment hovering behind you. The weird thing is, precision matters. You're just a laborer, but even you know, a crooked shaft means misaligned burial paths. And those paths? They guide the pharaoh's soul to eternity, supposedly. One botched angle and he's haunting your great-great-grandkids. They say the king's chamber itself is perfectly level, less than a finger's width off across the entire floor. Who measured that? Probably some guy whose only job was squatting, with a plumb bob for 8 years straight. You say a silent prayer for his knees. The climb back out is worse than going in. You slip on loose rubble and skin your shin. Blood trickles down your leg, mixing with limestone dust. One of the older workers pats your shoulder. Sacrifice, he says, the gods notice, you hope they do. Maybe toss a little divine luck your way. Outside, the light blinds you. Your pupils shrink like scared cats. The air tastes sweet again. Even the breeze feels like a reward. You're given a break. A real one. A reed mat. A bowl of lentil porridge. And a few minutes of silence. A man nearby shares a strange tidbit. Did you know the pharaoh wants his chamber lined with granite from Aswan? You frown. That's hundreds of miles upriver. They'll float it down on boats, he adds. Drag it up here, you can't imagine it. Hauling granite through desert heat? Why not just bury the guy under his palace and call it a day? Later, as you're sweeping loose rock from a gallery chamber, a visitor arrives. He's not a worker. He wears fine linen and smells like honey. A priest, maybe. He walks slowly, touching the walls, whispering prayers. You stop to watch him. He sees you, smiles faintly. All this, he says, waving his hand at the stone, is not for life. It is for forever. You don't know what to say. Forever is a long time. You're just trying to make it through today. As the sun begins to fall, you're led out of the pyramid and down to the workers' pool. It's not much, just a large stone basin filled with water, but it's a luxury. You strip down and wade. The water is cold, clean, your body floats, your skin thanks you. Someone splashes you, then dives under. Laughter ripples across the surface. For a few brief moments, you're not a pyramid slave, you're just a person in water, under a sky, with nothing to carry. Later, dry and fed, you sit by the fire with the others. Someone carves shapes into a bone dice. Another retells the hollow wall story, adding a wild twist. It's a trap chamber, full of snakes. You all groan. No, really, he insists. The pharaoh wants to guard his treasure in death. You shake your head. More likely he's hoarding leftover garlic. Everyone laughs, even the torch boy. That night, you dream that you're the stone itself, carved and placed in the dark, waiting forever. And somehow in the dream it feels peaceful. It's your turn to help with the mortar mixing, which means today you're not hauling, scraping, or chiseling. You're making ancient glue. And let's just say, the recipe doesn't come with tidy measurements or a happy little instructional scroll. You start with the basics. Sand, water, and gypsum. The sand is coarse, burning hot by the time it gets scooped into the mixing pit. Water is precious here. It comes from the Nile in clay jugs, and every drop feels like it costs a prayer. Gypsum, meanwhile, comes in dusty sacks that you swear were designed to rupture on sight. You roll up your tunic and get to work, bare feet in the pit, mixing the sludge with a heavy wooden paddle, and then, because that's too slow, just using your legs. It's like stomping through thick porridge if porridge could suck the life out of your calves. Someone behind you says, "You're lucky. Last season they were using animal fat instead of water." You pause. Why? Because it stuck better. And because they could. He laughs. You try not to gag. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians experimented with fat-based binders, but either way, you're glad today's blend is vegan. Once the mixture hits the right consistency, goopy, grainy, vaguely smelling like hot bricks, it's scooped into large baskets and rushed off to the build site. There, masons use it to bind blocks together, smoothing joints so tight a blade of grass couldn't squeeze between them. Literally. It's one of those facts that gets tossed around like legend. The joints are so fine, modern tools can't replicate them. And while that may be an exaggeration, standing here watching it happen, you believe it. As you slog through another batch, your mind wanders. You think of the foreman who monitors mortar application. He carries a long reed rod, not for measuring, but for smacking anyone who gets sloppy. He's not cruel, just very into neat seams. A boy dumps more sand into the pit and slips, falls face first into the mix. You yank him out quickly before he becomes part of history in the worst way. He's shaken but laughing, sputtering through gypsum paste. You hand him a water skin. "Drink first," you say. "Then breathe." He coughs. "I taste pyramid." You nod solemnly. You are pyramid now. After midday, you take a break. In the shade of a half-finished retaining wall, a mason nearby tells you about the secret mortar formula used on the Great Pyramid. They say it's still there, still holding, even after 4,000 years. No one's sure what they put in. Magic, someone offers. "No," the mason replies. "Patience." Which is funny because the one thing nobody here seems to have is patience, except maybe the masons. They smooth each seam like it's a sacred act, even whispering prayers sometimes. You watch one lean close to a freshly set joint and murmur something into the crack. "What's he saying?" you ask. "Probably apologizing to the block," someone jokes, "or begging it not to shift." And that's not entirely absurd. The entire structure rests on thousands of joints like this, each one bearing a share of the weight. If even one gives way in the wrong spot, the domino effect could make a whole corridor collapse. You've heard the stories. A foreman once tried to cut corners on the inner passage, used half-mixed mortar. The next morning, the wall bowed inward. They sealed it off and reassigned him to, let's just say, goat washing duty. Still, there's beauty in the work. You run your fingers along a newly set seam. It's warm from the sun, slick from the gypsum, and nearly invisible. This part of the pyramid doesn't shout. It whispers, "I'll last longer than you." Your afternoon shift takes you to the higher ramp, where baskets of mortar are being winched upward with a pulley system. This setup is newer. Some scribes credit a brilliant architect named Hemiunu. Others claim it was copied from Nubian designs. Nobody agrees. They rarely do. But the pulley? It saves lives and backs. 2 workers guide the basket's rise with tugs and calls. You just keep refilling them. Scoop, fill, lift, repeat. It's hypnotic after a while, like feeding a hungry beast that never says thank you. Then it happens. A basket snaps mid-lift. Mortar rains down. You duck just in time, but someone below gets a direct hit. Covered head to toe in hot sludge, he screams something that's definitely not PG-13. The site goes quiet. A priest nearby chants a quick incantation, more for luck than healing, and the injured man is carried off. He'll be back tomorrow, grumbling but fine. The pyramid doesn't care about your bruises, only your output. As the sun starts to dip, you're pulled aside by an older worker who's been around since the second tier was laid. He points to the wall and says, "Touch it. Go on." You do. It's still warm. "This stone was placed 9 years ago," he says.
Still holding, still perfect. Some people think this whole place was built by aliens, but me? I know better. You raise an eyebrow. Oh? He grins. It was built by tired feet, burnt shoulders, and the best mortar this side of the Nile. You
Laugh, partly because it's true, and partly because you've never been so proud of a paste in your life. As dusk turns the pyramid golden, your final task is cleanup. You hose your tools with a trickle of water, careful not to waste any. You scrape dried mortar off the soles of your sandals. And then, like a chef after closing, you look at your work and sigh, not from exhaustion, but from some weird, quiet satisfaction. Dinner is lentil cakes and dried fish. Not bad. You share with the boy who fell in the pit earlier. He mimics swimming motions with his arms. Next time I dive, he says, I'm going for the king's chamber. You shake your head. That shaft's too narrow. Try the queen's. More. Laughter. More warmth. Later that night, lying on your mat under the stars, you think about the pyramid, not as a place, but as a process. It's growing, alive somehow. Every seam, every scoop of mortar, every grunt of effort, it's part of a rhythm. And you're a beat in the drum line. You fall asleep with sore feet and lime dust under your nails, dreaming not of glory, but of joints that never crack. The morning light hits you like a cold slap, dragging you out of your dreams and into another day of grinding, sweating, and wishing you could be anywhere else. As usual, there's no time to adjust. The moment you hear that familiar reed whistle blowing, you know it's time to get moving. You roll out of your mat, stretch aching limbs, and grab the rough linen tunic hanging by your sleeping spot. No use complaining. The day is already here, and there's work to do. You join the line of workers heading out to the pyramid site, a sea of bodies all trudging the same dusty path. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, freshly baked stone, and the faint aroma of roasting meat from the campfires at the far end. You can barely make out the sun yet, but the heat's already seeping into your bones. Soon it'll feel like a furnace, but you'll keep working. There's no choice. Today, your job involves setting the massive limestone blocks for the pyramid's outer casing. These are the blocks that will shine bright under the sun, making the pyramid gleam like a beacon in the desert. They're heavier than anything you've ever lifted, but you're not alone in this. A small team of workers is assigned to each block, and it's a coordinated dance of pulleys, ropes, and sheer muscle. The block is positioned at the edge of the ramp where it waits like a sleeping giant. You and a few others take turns pushing and pulling it into place. It's grueling work, but there's something satisfying about seeing the block slowly inch forward, finally settling into the perfect spot with a satisfying thud. Once in position, a team of masons comes over to check the alignment. They carry long plumb lines, marking each stone with careful precision. You watch as they use copper chisels to gently tap along the edges, ensuring that the joints between the blocks are as tight as possible. It's a slow, deliberate process, but they move with a calm confidence. These are the men who hold the secret to the pyramid's unyielding perfection. Historians still argue over how the Egyptians achieved such remarkable precision, with some claiming that the use of advanced surveying tools or techniques like the plumb line was far more sophisticated than anyone expected. Others insist that sheer experience and the wisdom of generations made it possible. As the block settles into place, you feel a strange sense of accomplishment. It's not your block, but for some reason, it feels like your efforts have made it a little bit closer to its final form. The pyramid is no longer just a structure. It's a living thing, a work in progress, always growing, always evolving. By midday, the sun is blazing, and you're covered in a fine layer of dust and sweat. You take a moment to drink from your water skin, trying not to gulp too quickly. Every drop is precious here, and it's better to make it last. The air feels heavy, thick with the promise of another long, hot afternoon. You're tired, but you've got no time to rest. The pyramid waits for no one. After lunch, you're sent back to the stone quarry, where a new batch of limestone blocks is being extracted. The noise here is deafening. Workers using copper tools to wedge and pry blocks loose, hammering relentlessly against the stone. The quarry is a mess of sharp edges and rough surfaces, the ground littered with broken shards of limestone that could have been part of the pyramid itself. You're assigned to haul the blocks to the preparation area, where they'll be shaped and smoothed before being sent to the construction site. The blocks are incredibly heavy, but you're used to the weight by now. You've learned to lift with your legs, not your back, to minimize the strain. The trick is to make it seem like you're not dying inside, even when your legs are trembling, and your body is on fire from the heat. As you haul one of the blocks up the incline toward the preparation area, you see something strange. A worker is sitting in the shade a few paces away from the action, looking far too relaxed for someone who's supposed to be working. He catches your eye and gives a small wave. "Taking a break?" you ask, stopping in your tracks for a moment. He shrugs. Why not? The pyramid isn't going anywhere. You chuckle and roll your eyes. That's one way to look at it. He leans back against a stone, clearly unbothered by the chaos around him. You know, sometimes I wonder what it's all for. All this sweat, all this blood. It's like we're building something that will outlast us, but who will remember us? Who will know our names? You pause for a moment, staring at the distant pyramid. It seems impossibly large, like it's always been there and always will be. Maybe it's not about remembering, you say quietly. Maybe it's about doing the work, about making something that's bigger than us. The worker grins and taps his forehead. You've got a point. A lot of people never stop to think about that. Before you can say anything else, a supervisor calls out, and the moment passes. You go back to hauling your blocks, your mind buzzing with the conversation. It's funny. When you first arrived here, you didn't think about the pyramid at all. It was just another job. But now it feels like there's something more to it. Something that keeps you coming back day after day, even when your body feels like it's about to give out. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, you find yourself working more slowly, your movements starting to lose their sharpness. The day has been long, and you've earned your tiredness. You look up at the pyramid again, noticing how the sunlight glances off the massive stones, casting long shadows that stretch across the desert floor. The pyramid is still rising, still growing, still being built. The night is coming, and it's time to rest. You join the other workers as you head back to camp, your muscles aching but your spirit oddly light. The work is hard and the days are long, but something about this place, the constant effort, the sense of purpose, makes it feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, and you'll do it all over, again. But tonight you'll sleep. You'll dream of stone and mortar, of blocks and ramps, and of the pyramid that will stand long after you've gone. Your eyelids flutter open just before the sun peeks over the horizon. The air is cool now, just for a short while, the last few moments of mercy before the sun remembers it's in the desert and decides to incinerate everyone again. You sit up, stretch, and feel every bone complain. Your arms ache from hauling stone, your legs feel like you slept under a camel, and your back? Let's just say it's writing angry letters to your brain. But you're up, because that's what pyramid workers do. And today there's something different waiting for you. Your crew's been reassigned to one of the burial chambers deep inside the pyramid. You don't cheer. You've heard the rumors. Inside the pyramid, it's cooler, yes, but also darker, dustier, and, let's be honest, downright creepy. You grab your tools and follow the line of workers weaving into the belly of the beast. The moment you step, inside it's like entering another world. The heat fades, replaced by a thick, cool silence. Your torch flickers, casting orange shadows on the limestone walls. The passageway narrows quickly, sloping downward at an angle that forces you to stoop. You already regret every lentil cake you ate at breakfast. The deeper you go, the more you feel it. Not just the chill in the air, but the weight of the structure above you. Millions of tons of stone pressing down, held up by the sheer stubbornness of ancient engineering. It's awe-inspiring and also mildly terrifying. You're working in what will be the king's final resting place, or so the overseer says. Whether it's Khufu or someone else depends on which scribe you talk to. Historians still argue whether this chamber was always intended to be used or if it's more symbolic, a sort of decoy perhaps. Your job? Clearing debris and helping smooth the walls. You're handed a copper scraper and told to shave down the rough edges of the limestone blocks. It's delicate work, the kind that requires patience, a steady hand, and just enough light not to accidentally scrape your own fingers off. Someone nearby coughs. The air down here is stale, filled with limestone dust and whatever else has been trapped in the stone's pores for thousands of years. You tie a cloth over your mouth, trying not to breathe too deeply. Welcome to ancient HVAC, hot, dry, and not remotely OSHA compliant. As your eyes adjust to the dimness, you notice the walls are covered in faint markings. Not hieroglyphics, those will be added later, if at all, but mason's graffiti. Chalk scrawls showing team names, measurements, even the occasional stick figure with a crude caption. Seneb was here, one reads. You smirk. Guess workplace doodling has always been a thing. One of the older workers tells you a fringe story he swears is true. They say deep inside the pyramid, there are hidden corridors, secret chambers where the real treasures are buried. Only the high priests know. Everyone else who finds them vanishes. You blink. That sounds incredibly made up. He shrugs. Yeah, but it makes chipping limestone a little more interesting, doesn't it? You can't argue with that. Midway through your shift, a low rumble shakes the corridor. Everyone freezes. You hold your breath, then another rumble. Closer now. It's not the structure collapsing, thank the gods. Just another team maneuvering a large block through a shaft above you. Still, it reminds you how fragile this whole operation really is. Lunch is brought down the shaft in a basket, dry bread and onion slices. You eat in silence, sitting on a smoothed-out ledge, staring at the flickering torchlight. Someone across from you mutters, "We're in the belly of a stone monster." You nod. It sure feels like it. The afternoon is spent installing support beams for a ceiling slab. Wooden braces are wedged into the walls to hold everything steady. You help position one, jamming it with all your weight until it fits. The creak it makes sounds like a dying tree. You step back, arms shaking, and wait. Nothing collapses. Good. Enough. And then, because the day wasn't weird enough, a priest enters the chamber. He's wearing a leopard skin sash and carrying a bundle of incense which he lights and swings slowly as he chants. The smoke curls in the cool air, winding through the chamber like a serpent. You and the other workers pause, watching as he walks the perimeter, muttering blessings to ward off spirits. Apparently someone claimed they saw an apparition earlier, a pale figure slipping through the stones. The priest is here to cleanse the energy. You're 87% sure it was just a guy getting lost on the way to the latrines, but hey, better safe than cursed. The ceremony ends, the priest nods, and everyone gets back to work pretending not to side-eye every flicker of shadow from now on. Toward the end of the day, your torch burns low. You're smoothing the corner of a ceiling block when your fingers graze something odd. An indentation, barely noticeable. You brush away dust. A small square chisel mark, different from the rest. Deliberate. You lean closer, but before you can inspect it further, the overseer calls time. Tools down. Pack up. Exit the chamber. As you make your way back up the sloping corridor, your legs screaming at every step, you can't stop thinking about that little mark. Was it just a mason's note? Or something else? You make a mental note to check again tomorrow if you're not reassigned. The transition from darkness to sunlight is almost blinding. You squint, shielding your eyes as the world explodes in gold and heat. Your skin immediately starts to sizzle again, but somehow, the outside doesn't feel as heavy after being inside the pyramid for so long. Dinner is lentils and beer. Thin, weak beer, but refreshing. You share your ghost story with the others. One guy insists he saw the same figure a week ago. Another swears the pyramid hums at night. Everyone agrees. Working deep inside the pyramid messes with your head. As the stars begin to appear, you lie on your mat, staring up at the inky sky, the silhouette of the pyramid looming against it. You think of the dark corridors, the priest's smoke, the secret chisel mark. The pyramid doesn't just sit there, it watches, waits. And you're inside it now, a part of it. Morning comes too soon, as always. You wake with that now familiar stiffness, the kind that makes you feel like your body's been flattened between two limestone blocks, which, come to think of it, might be tomorrow's job. But there's no time to dwell on it. Today you're reassigned again, this time to help haul granite blocks from the dock up to the pyramid site. Granite, not the nice, crumbly limestone. Oh no, this is the hard, heavy, who even invented this stone granite hauled all the way from Aswan over 500 miles upriver. Why? Because Pharaoh apparently likes a little flair in his tomb decor. You shuffle down to the riverbank where enormous, red and black blocks lie resting beside the water, waiting like silent beasts to be moved. The Nile glints beside them, calm and indifferent, pretending it didn't just carry these 40-ton monsters on wooden barges. You hear someone mutter, "If the gods wanted us to carry granite, they'd have made it float." Your job is part of a sled team. The block is placed on a wooden sled and you and about 30 others grab ropes to drag it across the sand toward the pyramid. It's not glamorous work. It's more like collective groaning. Even with the trick of pouring water over the sand to reduce friction, a neat trick some clever labor overseer figured out generations ago, it still feels like dragging a hippo through peanut butter. The sled groans. Your arms burn. The sand gives underfoot. You inch forward. 1 step at a time. Your supervisor yells encouragement, which is mostly just a fancy way of saying, pull harder. He also reminds you this particular granite block is destined for the king's burial chamber. That's supposed to inspire you, but honestly, you'd rather it be destined for the bottom of the Nile. As the sled creaks forward, a debate sparks up between two workers behind you. Why use granite? One grunts. It's not like the dead care. Protection, The other pants, harder stone, harder to rob. Historians still argue about that, chimes in another. Some think it's religious, some think it's just for show. Or, someone adds with a smirk, maybe Pharaoh just hated us. That one gets a few weary chuckles. You reach a rest point, finally. Water skins are passed around, and you flop onto the sand like a discarded rag doll. Nearby, a man stirs a mixture of oil and soot into a pot. It's used to lubricate the sled runners, though judging by the results, it mostly lubricates your patience. As you lie there, muscles twitching, you watch a group of scribes at a distance, tracking every delivery in tidy rows of hieratic script. You wonder what they're writing about you. Probably something like, hauling team B slow but sweaty. Eventually it's back to work. You cross ramps, raised platforms, and temporary roads built of mud brick and timber. The whole construction site is a maze of pathways. Teams hustle everywhere, like ants, building a kingdom they'll never live in. Mid-haul, your sled gets stuck. The sand's too dry, the angle too steep. You dig around the runners while another worker grabs a pot of water and sloshes it in front. The sand clumps into a slippery paste, and with one big heave, you're moving again. As you pull, a moment of madness overtakes your brain and you shout, "Almost there," even though you're definitely not almost there. But the others laugh and it helps. Maybe optimism is the only muscle you've got left. By the time the block reaches the base of the pyramid, your arms feel like they're made of jelly. You watch the rigging team take over, setting up pulleys and levers to begin the slow ascent up the massive ramp. You wonder how many ramps they've built for this project. Straight ones, zigzagging ones, circular ones. Theories abound. Some say there was just one huge ramp in front. Others argue for spiral ramps wrapping around the pyramid's face. Historians still argue over the logistics. You, for one, just know this. No matter which ramp they use, it's still uphill, and it still sucks. Your job shifts again in the afternoon. Now you're shoveling sand off the roads, clearing the way for more sleds. It's mindless, repetitive work, but it gives your arms a break from hauling ropes. You lose yourself in the rhythm of it. Scrape, scoop, dump, repeat. While working, an older man beside you shares a curious story. He claims that some of the granite blocks have tiny channels carved into them, barely visible to the eye. Not functional, but symbolic. A path for the soul, maybe? Or a kind of architectural signature. Some believe each stone has a spirit, he says. If you treat it well, it cooperates. If not, well, you saw what happened to Tepi last week. Tepi, as it turns out, tripped while guiding a stone and broke his ankle. He's now convalescing with a splint made from palm wood and regret. You silently offer a prayer to the granite spirits just in case. Evening falls with little ceremony. The day ends not when the sun dips low, but when the overseers finally wave you off. You stumble back to camp, feet dragging, back soaked with sweat. Your hands are raw, your shoulders throb, and your calves feel like they've been twisted into knots. Dinner is a blessing. A thin stew of lentils and garlic with just enough flavor to feel human again. You eat slowly, savoring every bite like it's a royal feast. Someone passes a jug of beer around and you take a grateful swig. It's warm and flat, but after today, it tastes like heaven. As darkness deepens, you sit near the fire, staring at the pyramid's massive silhouette. It rises above everything, impossible and majestic. Somewhere in that structure is the block you helped move today. Just one out of millions. But it's yours now. You lie down on your mat, eyes fluttering shut. The ache in your body is deep, but so is the sense of weird, gritty satisfaction. You survived Granite Day. Barely. Tomorrow might bring more hauling, or something entirely different. But for now, there's rest. And dreams. Of slippery ramps, haunted stones, and pharaohs who clearly didn't care about back pain. You wake up before dawn again, but this time your arms don't ache quite as much. That should be comforting, but it isn't. It's the kind of numbness your body learns after too many days of dragging, lifting, and bracing things that weigh more than your entire village. You stretch slowly like an old reed boat creaking in the tide, and head toward the work zone, dreading the next assignment. Today, you're sent to the ramps. The ramps are the real unsung villains of pyramid construction. Sure, the stones are heavy, the desert's hot, the overseers yell, but nothing quite compares to trudging up a massive, inclined road made of compacted mud brick, loose gravel, and the occasional goat skull. These ramps go up and up, sometimes straight toward the pyramid, other times curving around it like a massive snail shell. You join a crew hauling small limestone blocks, nothing compared to yesterday's granite monsters, but still hefty enough to make your knees think about retirement. Ropes are wrapped around the blocks and wooden sleds help slide them forward. You grab your section of rope and start pulling. The incline bites into your legs immediately. One step, another. Don't think. Just pull. The higher you go, the worse it gets. The ramp is wide but chaotic. Some workers are coming down, others going up, and a few are just collapsed on the side like forgotten laundry. It's a traffic jam, but with more sweat and occasional yelling in ancient Egyptian. As you near the top, you pass a group of engineers and scribes pointing at a tablet. They're deep in conversation, arguing about the angle of the incline. One of them insists the ramp's too steep. Another says it must be steeper to save time. A third says a second ramp should have been built instead. Historians still argue about how these ramps were designed, and frankly, so do the people using them. You glance over the edge, and your stomach flips. The drop is dizzying. The ramp clings to the pyramid's side like a child afraid of falling. There's no railing. Of course, just open sky and gravity. You grip the rope tighter and keep walking. A gust of wind kicks up dust and your eyes sting. You blink hard, and for a moment, everything goes blurry. The massive blocks, the workers, the endless steps. It all blurs into one surreal, shimmering image. You suddenly feel very small. At the top, the block is passed to the placement crew. They wedge it into a waiting slot like a puzzle piece. Precision is key. Each block must be fitted tightly with barely a sliver between them. You watch the team nudge it into place with copper tools, bits of crushed rock, and a whole lot of shouting. While you're waiting for your next haul, you steal a moment to look around. From this height, the desert stretches endlessly in all directions. The Nile glimmers in the distance, a thin, snaking ribbon of life. You can just make out the quarries far away, tiny shapes moving across them like insects. It's oddly beautiful. One of the other workers tells you a strange story as you rest. He swears that every ramp built on the pyramid has a hidden message buried beneath it. A prayer, a curse, or even a secret map. They hide it under the foundation, he says, so it'll never be found unless the whole thing crumbles. Which, it won't, you reply, brushing sand off your legs. Right? He just shrugs. Who knows? Maybe that's the point. The next round of hauling begins. You groan as you grab your rope again. The incline hasn't gotten any shorter in the last 10 minutes. Up you go, feet slipping slightly on the worn-down surface. Sweat pours from your face. You taste sand in your mouth. Halfway up, a runner rushes past, yelling something about an accident further down the ramp. A sled tipped. Block shattered. Someone's foot got caught underneath. There's no time to check, but the thought gnaws at you. There are no safety nets here. Just teamwork, luck, and bruises. By midday, the heat is unbearable. You're ordered to help spread wet clay over the ramp to keep the dust down and the surface slick for sleds. You slather the mixture with wide palms, smearing it like frosting on a cake. If the cake was enormous, sloped, and cursed. Lunch arrives in the usual basket: bread, dried figs, and a tiny onion. You eat it while sitting on a stone block, letting your legs dangle over the ramp's edge. One wrong scoot and it's a long tumble, but you're too tired to care. After lunch, you notice something strange. There's a worn carving on the ramp wall. Just a few scratches, but they're deliberate. A rough etching of a man pulling a sled, but with wings on his back. You ask an older worker about it. He grins. That's a joke from the old days. The flying hauler. People said if you worked hard enough, you'd grow wings and fly away. It was sarcastic even back then. You laugh, the sound raspy. Pretty sure I'm growing blisters, not wings. Blisters first. Wings later, he says with a wink. Later in the afternoon, a team of musicians shows up. Drummers, flutists, and one guy with a stringed instrument made from turtle shell and sinew. They're here to motivate the workers. And surprisingly, it helps. The rhythm syncs with your steps, giving a weird kind of energy to the slog. Music therapy, 2500 BCE edition. By the end of the day, you've made more trips up and down the ramp than you can count. Your feet are raw, your tunic is soaked, your hands are rope-burned and stiff, but the ramp is still there and so are you. Somehow. As the sun dips low, you descend the ramp for the final time. Shoes slipping slightly with every step. You pass other workers heading down too, faces streaked with dust, eyes glassy from exhaustion. But there's something like camaraderie in the air. Shared misery, mutual defiance. Back at camp, you eat your fill of lentil stew and wash it down with lukewarm beer. Someone plays the turtle shell instrument by firelight, strumming a soft, meandering tune. You listen, body aching but mind wandering. You think of the ramps. How many will be torn down once the pyramid is finished? How many hidden stories are buried beneath them? What will the future think when they look at this monument? They won't see the ramps, or the sweat, or the sarcastic graffiti etched into the limestone. They'll just see perfection. You smile to yourself, eyes closing. That's fine. You know what really happened? The next morning your body wakes up before your mind does. It just knows. Sun's not even risen, but the air is already warming. You hear the distant clang of copper tools and the slap of sandals on sand. Another day at the pyramid. Another round of trying not to get flattened by a boulder or pass out from dehydration. But today's different. You're reassigned to a more delicate job, working on the interior chambers. Sounds fancy, right? Don't get too excited. You're not carving your name into the tomb wall for posterity. You're on dust duty. The inner chambers of the pyramid are darker than the Nile at midnight. No breeze, no light except for flickering oil lamps and the occasional ray of sun bouncing off a polished copper mirror. Clever little tricks to guide light deep inside. The stone corridors are narrow and angled steeply, which means you spend a lot of time hunched over, tripping on your own feet, and hitting your head on the ceiling. You're given a reed broom and a simple task. Sweep the debris left behind by the masons and artisans who carve hieroglyphs and smooth stone surfaces. The dust clings to your skin like it's trying to become part of you. You can taste it in the back of your throat, dry and chalky like old barley. Still, there's something awe-inspiring about the chambers. These are the spaces meant for gods, or at least a man who thinks he's becoming one. The granite sarcophagus is already here, sealed off behind temporary walls. The walls themselves are smooth, blank for now, but soon to be covered in the most sacred symbols. You wonder if, hundreds of years from now, anyone will walk these halls and wonder who swept this floor. You doubt it. That's the curse of labor, visible only through what's left behind. You overhear a few masons arguing nearby about the alignment of the passage. Apparently, it's off by a fraction of a degree. Historians still argue whether this was intentional, one says. Maybe it's supposed to point to a star, maybe someone just messed up. You make a mental note. Never underestimate the power of ancient construction errors. Even perfection starts with mistakes. The temperature inside is cooler than outside. But don't let that fool you, it's a stuffy, stale kind of cool. Like someone stored old sandals in here and then sealed the place up for eternity. You try not to think about what's going to happen when this chamber is sealed for good. No more light, no more footsteps. Just a pharaoh, a granite box, and a whole lot of silence. One of the quirks of working inside the pyramid is the echo. Every cough, every shuffle, every muttered complaint bounces off the stone like a ghost repeating your every move. You make a game of it, whispering silly phrases to hear them return to you in eerie, distorted fragments. Granite is the worst, becomes the worst, which feels like validation, honestly. Mid-morning, your sweeping is interrupted by a procession of overseers and architects. They walk through the passage like royalty, pointing at things and scribbling notes. One of them, an older man with a bald head and a stern frown, stops near the central chamber and murmurs, "We'll need to align the shaft perfectly. The king's soul must travel to Orion." Orion, that constellation again. You've heard talk about how the pyramid is built to align with the stars. Some say the whole layout of Giza mirrors the stars in Orion's belt. Whether it's religious, symbolic, or just a giant astronomical flex, nobody agrees, but it's impressive. And from your current perspective, wildly unnecessary. You share a break with a few chamber workers. They're polishing stone blocks with powdered sandstone and cloth soaked in oil. It's slow, tedious work, and they're absolutely covered in grit. One of them leans over to you and says, "You know, some say these inner walls are cursed. Because of the king?" you ask. "No," he says with a smirk. "Because we have to polish them by hand." Laughter ripples through the group, quickly muffled by the thick air. Your shift continues, each hour melting into the next. You sweep debris from tight corners, duck under scaffolding, and help ferry baskets of tools back and forth. Occasionally, you spot someone sneaking a carved doodle into the stone, a little cartoon figure, a crude falcon, even a few rude jokes involving donkeys. Not exactly sacred inscriptions, but little signs of life, of you. As the day drags on, the light grows dimmer. The copper mirrors have to be repositioned constantly to reflect sunlight into the deepest corridors. When they're out of alignment, the darkness swallows you whole. For a few heartbeats, you're just a breathing shadow among walls of stone. Think about what it'll be like when the king's finally sealed in. No air, no noise, just stone on stone. And what happens if someone gets trapped inside? It's not unheard of. A whisper passes among the workers about a man who once got stuck in a chamber and only escaped because his torch smoke drifted through a crack. Superstition grows strong in the darkness. You start to imagine sounds, whispers that aren't echoes, footsteps that don't belong to anyone nearby. Your rational brain knows it's just the acoustics, but your tired, dusty brain, not so sure. Finally, you're released from the interior. You step back into the desert light like a prisoner crawling from a tomb. The sun blinds you at first, the brightness so sharp it feels like it cuts through your skull. But oh, the air, fresh, dry, and alive. You breathe it in like it's the finest perfume. Back at camp, you scrub off the dust, though it never really leaves you. It clings to your nails, your scalp, your very soul. You eat with the other chamber crew, and you all sit in quiet understanding, like survivors of something profound and strange. Someone passes around a carved dice game, and you play a few rounds laughing at the absurdity of it all. After a day spent in the belly of a god's tomb, dice made from animal bones feel refreshingly normal. As night settles, you lie on your mat and stare at the stars, searching for Orion. And there he is, striding across the sky with his belt of stars shining bright. You think of shafts, alignments, curses, and dust, of jokes carved into sacred walls and whispers bouncing down polished corridors. And then you think of sleep. The next morning, you're sore in places you didn't even know. Had muscles. There's a new layer of grime under your fingernails and a cough that wasn't there yesterday, probably from inhaling too much limestone dust. You swing your legs off the mat and brace yourself. Another day, another shift, another chance to not be crushed by sacred architecture. Today you've been reassigned again. Not to the ramps or the tomb chambers, but to something deceptively simple. Hauling water. Yes, water. The most precious thing in the desert. Right after not being yelled at by your overseer. The pyramid needs an obscene amount of water. Not just for drinking, but for mixing mortar. Softening ramps, cooling tools, keeping down dust, and even smoothing out stone surfaces. You don't really think about it until you're standing there, watching a line of workers trudging up from the Nile with full ceramic jugs sloshing in their arms like they're hugging sleepy crocodiles. And now you're one of them. The path to the river isn't long, but it's sandy, uneven, and hot enough to bake bread on. You grab your jug, already half chipped from previous journeys, and begin the shuffle. Step by step, the jug grows heavier. Or maybe your arms are just getting weaker. You're not sure. You reach the river and fill up from one of the designated points. The water is cloudy, tinged with silt and possibly fish drool, but nobody's complaining. You dip a strip of linen into it and tie it around your forehead to cool off. A little Nile facial. Spa day. Ancient Egyptian style. As you walk back, balancing, your jug with both hands, a wild donkey barrels past, chased by two laughing children. It kicks up a mini sandstorm that settles directly into your water. Great. Nile, with a twist of dust. Back at the site, you pour the water into a communal trough. The stone polishers grab it first, soaking their cloths and grinding powder into a smooth paste. Next come the mud brick mixers, sloshing it into troughs of sand, clay, and chopped straw. It's chaos, but it works. A fellow hauler sidles up to you during your next trip. He's older, wiry, with sun-worn skin and a permanent squint. You hear about the canal plan? He asks, wiping sweat from his brow. You shake your head. They say some architects are designing canals to bring the Nile right up to the worksite. Imagine that. No more trips down and back. It sounds impossible. And yet, maybe? Historians still argue whether special canals were actually dug to ferry materials and water straight to the pyramid's base. Some believe the Egyptians created a kind of floating highway system. Others say it's a myth or wishful thinking. But while they argue, you keep walking. At the river, you spot an overseer standing ankle-deep in water holding a tablet. He's talking about hydraulic calculations and seasonal flooding patterns. You pretend to be deaf and keep your distance. Last thing you want is to be volunteered for some experimental irrigation project. You take a longer break, under a fig tree near the riverbank. It's one of the only shaded spots for miles. You chew a strip of dried fish and try to ignore the flies gathering near your ears. Across the water, You spot a crocodile basking lazily, jaws open like he's waiting for a delivery. You give him a wave and wonder if he's considered a government employee. On the walk back, you pass a group of priests chanting a water blessing. They're flicking sacred droplets over the workers with little reed bundles. May the Nile always flow, they chant. May the jugs never crack. You mutter a quiet amen and pray your jug doesn't decide to explode halfway up the slope. Midday is the worst. The sun turns the sand to powder and your shadow into a puddle. You're sweating faster than you can drink. And with each round trip, the jug feels heavier, your steps slower. To lighten the mood, someone starts a chant. A call and response about hauling water, with plenty of made-up verses. My jug is cracked, my feet are flat. I saw a snake and I dropped it splat. It's dumb but catchy. You're humming it under your breath 3 trips later. By now you've memorized every bend in the path, every tree stump, every patch of prickly grass. You know which rocks shift underfoot and which ones are safe. It becomes a rhythm, a pattern. Haul, pour, return. Haul, pour, return. On one trip, your jug slips and smashes on a rock. Water splashes everywhere, soaking your sandals and drawing a delighted squawk from a passing ibis. You brace for yelling, but the overseer just sighs and hands you another jug. Try not to baptize the desert next time, he grumbles. Later in the afternoon, a supervisor explains that water isn't just for work. It's also used to cool down the stones themselves. Apparently, pouring water over giant blocks helps reduce friction when sliding them into place. You blink. That's actually kind of brilliant. You pass a team experimenting with this method. They're pouring buckets of water in front of a stone sled and watching it glide forward more smoothly. A scribe furiously scribbles notes while another worker just shrugs and says, "Feels like cheating, honestly." You sneak a sip from your next jug, trying not to think about where the last worker's mouth was. The water tastes like the river, muddy, slightly fishy, but it's the most glorious thing you've had all day. Toward evening, the last rays of sun paint the desert gold. You sit near the pyramid, jug resting at your feet, and watch the sky melt from orange to lavender. There's a hush settling across the site, the kind that only comes after a long, back-breaking day. You lean back on your elbows and look up at the towering blocks. For a moment, the pyramid catches the fading light and glows like it's on fire. A flame of stone set against the coming night. You smile, exhausted but weirdly content. Water hauler, dust sweeper, ramp climber, none of it glamorous, but all of it necessary. And someday someone will look at this monument and wonder how it was built. You'll know. You were there. The morning sky is streaked with pinks and soft blues when you're woken not by a shout or kick, but by something. Rarer, quiet. For once, the work site isn't vibrating with noise before sunrise. There's a pause in the routine. A hush, almost reverent. It's festival day. Well, technically, it's a holy day to honor the gods and keep the spirits happy, particularly those protecting the pyramid and its royal occupant. But for you and most other workers, it means a brief, glorious break from dragging rocks and inhaling dust. You stretch out your sore limbs and immediately regret moving. Everything hurts. Muscles, joints, even your earlobes somehow. But a day off, that's worth limping for. There's a light buzz across the camp. People sweep off their sleeping mats and shake the dust from their single best tunics. Someone even finds a leftover flower garland and plops it on their head like a crown. You clean yourself up as best you can, scrub your arms, splash water on your face, and hope no one notices you still smell like wet limestone. As the sun rises, the music begins. A few workers double as musicians and they drag out their flutes, hand drums, and sistrums. Soon the beat travels across the sand, clinking and rattling with infectious energy. A procession begins to form. Priests in white linen, dancers in painted masks, and the smell of incense wafting in behind them like a blessing. It's hypnotic. You find yourself swaying without realizing. The dancers twist and leap with a kind of weightlessness you haven't felt in months. Their faces are painted like falcons and crocodiles. Their movements fluid and wild, a little terrifying and a lot mesmerizing. At the center of it all is a sacred statue, likely of Osiris or maybe Ra, depending on which priest is in charge this month, carried on a platform by 4 wide-eyed novices who look like they've never held anything heavier than a scroll. The statue is polished, jeweled, and honestly kind of smug-looking. You try not to be jealous. As it passes, everyone kneels. In the dust, you do too, even though your knees crack like papyrus. The air is thick with smoke and spices. and someone nearby drops a prayer bread into the sand. A priest frowns but doesn't scold. Today is about forgiveness, after all. You're allowed to eat real food today, like non-work rations, loaves, baked with honey, dates, even a little beer, thicker than usual but sweet and cold. There's joy in the camp, real joy. You hear someone joke that if Pharaoh took more holy days, the pyramid would be half finished, but everyone would die happier. You laugh, but you also nod. There's truth there. Around midday, a storytelling circle starts near the edge of the camp. A hunched old man with a storyteller's voice, deep, slow, and sticky like date syrup, begins to recount the tale of a worker who offended the gods by spitting in a sacred shaft. Spoiler alert, he gets turned into a dung beetle. Historians still argue whether these tales were just morality plays, someone whispers to you, or if the workers genuinely believed them. You're not sure, but you do notice how everyone sits a little straighter and stops spitting for the rest of the story. As the sun climbs, things get more relaxed. The musicians shift into slower, sleepier rhythms. People sprawl out in the shade, some nap, some chat, others quietly pray. You join a group playing Sonnet, the ancient board game that somehow always ends in an argument about who cheated first. It feels strangely normal, this fleeting taste of leisure, this pause in the daily survival grind. No one's yelling. No, one's bleeding. No one's being crushed under stone. That's a win. Later, you walk along the edge of the camp and see a group of young workers staging an impromptu skit. They're acting out pyramid life, mocking the overseers, pretending to carry fake stones, one of them dramatically collapsing like a theater star with heat stroke. It's absurd and hilarious. Even a passing scribe chuckles before hurrying away, pretending he didn't enjoy it. You bump into a priest who's clearly had too much beer. He gives you a slow nod and slurs, "You know, the gods don't build pyramids, people do." You nod back, unsure whether that was profound or just fermented nonsense. Either way, it sticks with you. Evening arrives wrapped in cooler air and a sunset that turns the entire desert into a golden sea. The music picks up again. Torches are lit. The statue is returned to its shrine. And just like that, the holy day begins to fade. But before it ends, there's one last ritual, a symbolic offering made by the workers themselves. You each bring a token, a bead, a carved stick, a piece of cloth, something that represents your toil. You line up and place them at the foot of the pyramid. It's supposed to be a gesture of respect, of unity. You hesitate with your offering, a smooth stone you found weeks ago shaped like a perfect tear. You lay it down gently and whisper a quiet hope that your back won't hurt tomorrow, that the overseer will lose his voice, that the gods, if they're watching, might cut you some slack. You look up at the pyramid, its outline sharp against the darkening sky. It feels less like a building and more like a presence, a mountain that watches, judges, remembers. Tonight you'll sleep without cramps or coughing, without dust in your teeth, without the weight of a jug or a stone or a whip. Just for one night, you're not a beast of burden. You're a person again. And though tomorrow it'll all begin again, the pain, the noise, the chaos, tonight you have music, bread, stars, and the faint smell of incense lingering in your hair. Sleep comes. Easily, dreams follow. Some strange, some sweet, all shimmering with the golden glow of a day when, just for a moment, it didn't completely suck to be a pyramid slave. Morning returns with a vengeance. The quiet of the festival is gone, replaced once again by the screech of pulleys, the scrape of sandals on stone, and someone cursing loudly in ancient Egyptian because their breakfast loaf is half sand again. Your muscles protest as you roll over. Everything that had a chance to relax yesterday is now reminding you of its existence. Your lower back especially seems personally offended by the return to labor. Still, you haul yourself up and join the flow of workers heading toward the quarry zone. Today's assignment? Sand hauling. Oh yes, you're back in the glamorous world of moving dirt. At first, sand seems harmless, soft, light everywhere. But the minute you're tasked with hauling it uphill in woven baskets, it turns against you. It gets into your nose, your eyes, your ears. It scratches your skin like a million tiny blades. And worst of all, it never ends. For every load you dump, the wind delivers a new one. It's like trying to empty the Nile with a spoon. The sand is used to make ramps sturdier and smoother, fill gaps, and even help with leveling. One overseer explains, more like barks, that they need exact layers, measured in cubits and fingers. Not more, not less, or the whole ramp sags like a sun-baked lizard. You're assigned to a team of 4. 1 shovels, 2 haul, and you get the honor of dumping the loads evenly across the scaffold. A very scientific process that basically involves eyeballing it while being shouted at. A curious thing about ancient Egypt, despite the dust and chaos, measurements were surprisingly precise. They had standardized tools for volume, length, even slope. The builders were basically human calculators. Your role in this symphony of precision? Walking bucket. At one point, your teammate trips and spills a load down the slope. The overseer glares and growls. That's 2 hands of work wasted. You mutter under your breath that he can come scoop it himself, but just low enough that the wind carries it away before he hears. Someone nearby starts humming a tune. It catches on. Before long, the sand haulers have turned the rhythm of their footsteps into a low, gritty song. Something about grain, pain, and rain, which never comes. You join in because anything is better than silence filled with groaning. Joints. Around midday, you sit for a break with the others, pulling your head covering over your face to shield from the sun. The conversation turns, as it always does, to who has it worst. I'd take this over working the copper mines, one says. Chewing on a fig pit. At least here the sand isn't melting your face. Yeah, but it does peel your skin like an onion, another chimes in. Historians still argue, a scribe interrupts as he passes, whether sand hauling was punishment or just one of the many rotating roles. Everyone throws him a synchronized, unimpressed look. He scurries off. One of the guys starts talking about the sand spirits, the tiny invisible creatures that supposedly live inside the dunes and sneak into your skin if you don't ask permission before digging. His great-grandmother swore it happened, to her cousin, who woke up one morning filled with sand and not quite himself anymore. You laugh, but that night, you'll brush the sand from your arms more thoroughly than usual. Back at the haul zone, the afternoon shift feels like walking through a dry ocean. The heat waves shimmer off the ground. The sand sticks to your sweat like a second skin, and every footstep sounds like you're crushing ancient whispers. Suddenly, a gust of wind barrels in from the south, whipping sand into your eyes. You duck and shield your face, blinking through the sting. You can't see anything for a moment, just light and grit. Somewhere to your left, someone yells and trips. When it clears, you're covered from head to toe. Your teeth crunch. You cough and spit and look at the pyramid through the storm's haze. It's still there, towering, unmoved by weather or worker misery. The wind reveals something odd. Half-buried pottery shards near the ramp base. A passing artisan stops to inspect them. Old votive pots, he mutters. Offerings, maybe from earlier builds. He scoops one up and shakes the sand from it like he's waking up a ghost. Sometimes the old gods leave things behind. Warnings, or help, depends who you ask. The wind howls again. You shovel faster. As evening approaches, your legs threaten to give out. Your fingers cramp, but the ramp is coming together, layer by layer. You can see the rise, the curve, the way it hugs the pyramid's base. It's like a snake slowly climbing its prey. There's debate even now about how the Egyptians moved stones up these ramps. Straight, zigzagging around the pyramid, spiral from base to tip. The truth? You don't know. You just know the sand has to be flat, the edges solid, and the base firm, or the whole thing sinks like a rotten date. You manage one last haul as the sun disappears behind the dunes. The light turns copper, then dark. Torches flicker on. Workers drag themselves away from the ramps like ghosts slipping back into the sand. You don't talk much that night. No jokes, no songs. Just water, quiet chewing, and the slow, painful peeling of clothes soaked with sweat and grit. The stars overhead twinkle like they know exactly how much sand is still waiting for you tomorrow. You fall asleep with the taste of it in your mouth. Sand. Everywhere. Forever. You wake up coughing again. The sand has crept into your nose. Your mouth, even your dreams. You swear you heard it whispering to you last night, something about never escaping. About becoming part of the ramp forever. You shake it off. Sort of. Today is what the overseers call a mixed labor day, which sounds like a break until you realize it means bouncing between random tasks no one else wants. Lucky you. You get assigned to the rope team. At first glance, pulling ropes doesn't seem too bad. Compared to stone cutting or sand hauling, it almost looks manageable. Until you realize these ropes aren't just string. They're thick, raw fiber beasts that chew up your palms and weigh more than your average donkey. You and 9 others are looped into the operation like oxen. The stone, one of the smaller blocks thankfully, is lashed in a wooden sledge that's half buried in sand. Your job? Drag it forward inch by excruciating inch while someone yells, "Pull," like it's a commandment from Ra himself. You lean back, grip tight, and pull. Nothing happens. You all look at each other, embarrassed. Again comes the bark. This time the sledge lurches. It groans like something alive, and you feel the resistance shudder through your spine. The rope digs into your palms, and you immediately understand why some workers wrap their hands in old linen scraps. One guy has actual leather guards, show off. The process is slow and rhythmic. Pull, breathe, pull, yell, stumble, reset. The sun isn't even at its peak yet, and you're drenched. Not the gentle glow of a morning jog, but full-blown. Is this what drowning feels like? Levels of sweat. There's a trick, though. You notice it after the second pull. A team of men ahead is dumping water in the path of the sledge. Yes, water. Muddy, precious water. It softens the sand, reduces friction, makes the sledge glide more easily. It's one of those clever little details you never thought about but is absolutely real. Modern experiments proved it works. The ancient Egyptians knew their physics. Of course, no one offers you a physics lecture. You're just told, don't trip. Wet sand's like an eel's back. Pull after pull, the block creeps forward. You chant to keep pace. Your thighs scream. The guy next to you mutters a prayer to Hathor, though halfway through it turns into a wheeze. One man vomits from the heat. He's dragged off, and a fresh, unlucky soul takes his place. As if that's not enough, you're soon told to switch stations. Now you're part of the lift assist crew, essentially pushing from behind as others haul with the ropes. It's about as fun as it sounds. Wedging your shoulder into a rough wooden sled, bracing your legs in slippery sand, and shoving with every breath left in your body. At some point, the block hits a snag. The sled tilts, everyone freezes. The overseer makes a sharp clicking sound. A warning. You step back. The rig team inspects the ropes. They're fraying. That's the other horror of rope work. When one of these lines snaps, it doesn't just flop harmlessly. It whips, fast, sharp, like a bull's tail dipped in iron. You've seen it happen before. A boy caught one across the face once. The scar looked like a river split through his cheek. The team replaces the line. Fresh rope from the tannery, soaked in animal fat, twisted by hand. Takes weeks to make, seconds to destroy. You try not to. Think about it as the yelling resumes. By late afternoon, the block is in place. A whole day for a few dozen meters. And this was one of the smaller stones. The pyramid has thousands. Your brain tries to do the math, but the heat makes everything fuzzy. You hear someone joke, "When we're done, the gods better carry us to the afterlife in gold chairs." You laugh weakly. More likely, you'll just get buried in sand and forgotten. The day ends not with fanfare but with silence. The block crew staggers off like battle survivors. Your palms are raw. Your back is tight. But the rope team finished a job, and that counts for something. You eat a double ration tonight, some fish paste, a smear of beans. You don't even remember tasting it, just shoveling it in and drinking water until your stomach swells like a clay jar. Under the stars, a few workers compare rope burn patterns like war wounds. Someone claims one looks like a snake. Someone else says theirs looks like a goddess. You're just glad yours still function. A scribe passes by, muttering about ergonomic failure and manual load dynamics. He probably writes poems on days like this. You mentally trip him with your mind. As you curl into your mat, muscles twitching from the day's grind, you realize something strange. The pyramid looks closer now. Just a little. Maybe it's the moonlight. Maybe it's your imagination. But the rows of stones seem to climb a little higher. Progress. However slow, however painful. The pharaoh's tomb is rising, and you're one more bruised cog in the machine. You fall asleep holding your wrist, feeling the ghost of the rope still there, looped around your skin like a memory that won't let go. Your body doesn't want to move. It has filed an official complaint with your brain citing excessive abuse, neglect, and irreversible rope trauma. But unfortunately, no one's canceling the pyramid today because you're sore. So you drag yourself upright, spit out a clump of something gritty, probably your soul, and rejoin the endless march toward labor. Today's task? Water carrying. Seems simple enough, right? Grab a jug, fill it from the reservoir, bring it to the work zone. Repeat until you collapse. But nothing in pyramid life is that straightforward. For starters, the jugs are ceramic, not exactly lightweight, and shaped to wobble like they're auditioning for a comedy sketch. Secondly, the reservoir isn't exactly close. It's a good walk down the slope. Through the base camp, past the animals, past the laundry zone, and then around a corner where it sits like an oasis that judges you. You're handed 2 jugs. Balanced with a yoke over your shoulders, they slosh against your sides with each step. The water is warm, of course, left uncovered under the sun, but it's better than nothing. The workers higher up the slope are desperate for it. So you walk and walk and walk. Some workers hum a tune to pass the time. You try to join in, but immediately realize you're too winded for music. So instead, you focus on the terrain. Every dip, every patch of loose sand that could topple you like a poorly built mud brick wall. On your 3rd trip, you witness a minor tragedy. A water carrier trips, spills both jugs, and falls straight into a pile of donkey droppings. The silence that follows is immense. Then, laughter. Harsh, loud, desperately needed laughter. Even the overseer cracks a smirk before waving the poor guy back down for a refill. You're warned that spilled water gets deducted from your ration. Harsh, but not surprising. Here's a strange fact that makes your arm muscles scream in confusion. Some ancient Egyptian work teams built elaborate water networks, ceramic pipes, reservoirs, even drains, especially around temple zones. But not here. Not for you. Maybe they thought walking kept you humble. You pass by one of the elite scribes on your 4th trip. He's fanning himself with a palm leaf, sitting in the shade, and nibbling on what suspiciously looks like fresh melon. "Ah," he says, barely glancing up, "another beast of burden." You smile sweetly and imagine hurling your jug at him. But the truth is, water carriers hold more power than they realize. No water, no mixing mortar. No mortar, no pyramid. You might be invisible to the nobles, but the stone masons practically bow when they see you coming. One even calls you mistress of the flow. You raise your jug in mock salute. If you're going to suffer, you might as well earn a cool title. Halfway through the day, you pause near the reservoir and listen. Frogs, just a couple, croaking lazily at the edge. Tiny, green, and smug. You watch one blink slowly, completely, unbothered by your exhaustion. It probably lives a whole life in that pool. No ropes, no stones, no jugs. Just sunshine and bugs. You're oddly jealous. A water priest passes through the area. He's there to bless the supply, more of a symbolic act than anything. He sprinkles herbs, mumbles to the gods of the Nile, and drops a tiny amulet into the basin. One of the kids near you whispers, "It's to keep the demons out of our water," or the frogs, another adds. Historians still argue, someone says in a serious tone, whether these rituals were for health or just tradition. You all stare blankly at him, too tired for debate. Later in the afternoon, you get reassigned again to mortar duty. That means mixing the water you've hauled with gypsum and crushed limestone into a thick gray paste. It's used between the massive blocks to help seal gaps and stabilize. The recipe isn't written down, of course. It's all in someone's head, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation. You kneel beside the mixing pit and plunge your arms into the gritty sludge. It's surprisingly soothing at first, until your arms start to tingle and sting. Gypsum doesn't play nice with open blisters. A mason explains casually that too much water weakens the bond. Too little, and the mix becomes useless. You find the balance by feel, like cooking. Just, with possible chemical burns. 1. Guy nearby swears his uncle went blind from too much mortar dust. Looked at the gods funny one day and poof, eye juice gone. You decide to blink more often. Evening drags itself across the desert like a tired lizard. Your hands are crusted with dried gray mud. Your arms ache from lifting, your legs from walking. But the stone layers are higher now. You can see the shape of it, this monstrous triangle growing upward. As you make your final walk back to the camp, your yoke empty. A breeze stirs the sand. A fine golden mist rises around the base of the pyramid, and for just a moment, it looks like it's glowing. Like it's alive. You pause, the others do too. The sunset hits it just right. Even your most sarcastic friend goes quiet. "It's beautiful," someone whispers. No one argues, because it really is. Doesn't make it suck less. But for a few seconds, the aches, the blisters, the thirst, they all seem small. Then someone's jug topples over and you're all laughing again, trudging back towards sleep, ready to wake up sore and sandy once more. You wake to a sound that sets off instant panic, clattering. Not from tools or sandals this time, but bones. Human bones. Before your mind can conjure something horrific, you realize it's a nearby healer's assistant. shaking a bag of old bone fragments used in some strange protective ritual. Keeps the work spirits away, he mumbles. Right? Sure, as if anything can keep bad luck off your back out here. Your assignment today? Grave duty. No, you're not digging a fresh one, though honestly, that wouldn't be shocking. You're being sent to a cluster of nearby tombs. Why? Because a team of builders stumbled on something. Ancient. Yes, even older than the pyramid you're working on. Apparently, the pharaoh's architects uncovered a set of weathered burial shafts while leveling the foundation slope. And since nothing can be moved without the blessing of the temple, priests, you've been conscripted into the cleanup and catalog crew. You trudge toward the dig zone. The air smells different here. Less sweat and sand, more stone dust and old secrets. You approach the entrance to a half-collapsed shaft where a few nervous workers stand, unsure whether to joke or shiver. You climb in anyway, because why not? Inside, it's dark and cool, an almost sacred relief from the relentless sun. You feel your way forward, the torch in your hand flickering like a shy firefly. The walls are etched with crude carvings, far less elegant than modern temple inscriptions. You run your fingers along the grooves. Maybe someone like you, thousands of years ago, made these. And there they are, bones, laid out not in golden coffins or ornamented chambers, but curled in fetal positions in shallow pits. Simple offerings. Rest nearby. Jars, tools, even a tiny reed doll. The kind a child might have played with. Your heart hiccups. Pre-dynastic, mutters one of the scribes behind you. Some of the earliest. Might have been workers too. You feel a strange kinship. These people were building something once. Or buried near it at least. Someone unearths a clay tablet fragment. It's barely legible, but the scribe reads aloud. May my bones rest beneath your footsteps and carry your greatness to the sky. You all fall silent. Not because you're trying to be reverent, but because, for once, the dead have something real to say. Outside, the day drags on. You're instructed to transport some of the unearthed objects back to the camp for preservation. It's slow, careful work. No dropping, no rough handling. You, the same person who hauls limestone blocks and dodges camel spit, are suddenly entrusted with relics older than your entire civilization. The irony isn't lost on you. You learn from a passing priest that these early graves challenge a few long-held assumptions. Historians still argue whether tomb workers were honored or merely hidden, he says. But here, look. Decorated pots, charcoal paintings. Someone cared. You nod, even as your arms start to tremble from carrying the 6th jar uphill. Later, during a break, an old man joins your group. He's a sort of unofficial storyteller. Every camp has one. He takes a long drink from a wineskin, squints toward the burial site, and says, My great-uncle said we're building on cursed land. Isn't all of Egypt cursed land when it's payday? Someone shoots back. Laughter. But the old man continues. No, really. They say if you disturb the first dead, the true dead, something wakes up. He lets that linger. Another guy adds, Well, something woke up in my gut last night. Probably wasn't ancient, though. More laughter. Nervous, but a little real, too. Night falls. You help lower a few last crates into the artifact tent, brushing dust off your tunic. You're sore in different ways today. Emotionally, maybe. Or just from squatting so much. Hard to tell the difference anymore. You sit near the edge of the shaft before turning in, legs dangling over what feels like a bottomless pit. Below are the bones of the forgotten, their lives compressed into fragments. And yet they're still here, still part of the story. Like you. The stars begin to flicker overhead. The wind whistles across the ridge, pushing a fine mist of sand over the shaft's mouth, covering, protecting. One of the younger boys sneaks up behind you and says, You think they're still down there watching us? You think for a moment. I think they're rooting for us, you say. Or laughing. Hard to tell. The boy nods solemnly, as if that's the best answer he's ever heard. You both head back toward camp, the firelight ahead dancing like a beacon. As you lie down to sleep, you can't help but imagine that somewhere beneath your feet, in stone and silence, those old bones shift slightly in the dirt, just enough to remind the living that they were here first, and that they know exactly how much it sucks to build something so big that you might never see the end of it. The sun is relentless. It's practically a personal vendetta against you. You roll out of bed feeling every muscle protest, but there's no time for sympathy. Another day of labor is already creeping over the horizon. Today's task, block placement. This one stings because it's the kind of work that leaves no room for error. You're helping the stonemasons set the heavy blocks, those massive slabs that will make up the outer layer of the pyramid. You're no longer just hauling water or mixing mortar. You're lifting, pushing, and sometimes, when things go wrong, shoving, with all your might to make sure these stones don't come crashing down on your team. The blocks weigh tons and the pressure is enormous. One slip could crush a person under the sheer weight. A small group of you gathers at the base of the pyramid where the stones are lined up. The overseers bark out commands, but they don't really need to. Everyone's so exhausted that the instructions are more like tired suggestions. You grab a rope, looping it around the stone and securing it with careful precision. One wrong knot could send the whole thing tumbling, so you make sure it's tight. The stone surface feels smooth but incredibly uneven, like it's always been slightly wrong, like it never quite belonged here. It's heavy enough that your fingers seem to shrink around the rope, your grip weakening with each passing second. It's not until the stone's half off the ground that the first cry of alarm rings through the air. The stone shifts. "Hold it!" someone yells, but it's too late. The sledge team hasn't adjusted in time and the block begins to slide. Everything happens at once. You throw yourself against it, desperate to prevent the stone from crashing, your back straining as the block threatens to tip. The sand beneath your feet shifts like wet clay, making it harder to maintain balance. But somehow, by some miracle, the stone catches on the lip of the stone base. A collective exhale. The overseer strides forward, eyes narrowed in frustration. "You're not trying hard enough," he spits. You want to scream that you're literally about to pass out from heat exhaustion, but you keep your mouth shut. Better to take the blame than get a beating. You grab the rope again, trying to ignore the pain shooting up your arms. The group coordinates better this time, pushing, pulling, heaving the stone upward. It's the kind of job that demands perfect synchronicity, and you're only half functioning at best. At one point, you overhear two masons discussing something peculiar. Historians still argue. One of them mutters whether they used ramps on the outside of the pyramid or inside, or a combination of both. The conversation isn't exactly riveting, but your mind starts to wander. Ramps. The idea is that the blocks were hauled up a long, spiraling ramp, winding around the pyramid's core. But some archaeologists think they may have used an internal ramp that coiled around the pyramid's heart like a snake, hidden from view. There's always that debate. Was it one method? Both? Something else entirely? The mystery of the ramp will probably never be solved, but you have bigger concerns, like your cramping legs. Finally, after what feels like hours, the block is in place. It fits perfectly, like the piece of a puzzle no one ever thought you could solve. You stand back covered in dust and sweat and admire your work for a second, until you're snapped out of it by the overseer's shrill voice. Next block, you. Don't even get a moment to bask in the accomplishment. It's always about the next one. You trudge back to the base where more blocks are waiting. Your stomach growls, but there's no time to eat, not really. You take a swig of water, but it doesn't seem to help the way your body aches. Instead, it just reminds you of how thirsty you really are. Another block. Another heave. The day drags. Kamsano. By late afternoon, you're working in what feels like a daze, just moving on autopilot. Your movements have become almost robotic. Grab the rope, pull, step back, repeat. The pyramid's shape looms over you like an unforgiving mountain, and you start to feel the crushing weight of the task at hand. There's no end in sight, no finish line. Just stone, and more stone. As the sun begins to dip, you're given a brief respite. You and the other workers sit in the shade of a half-constructed wall. It's almost dark, but the temperature hasn't dropped enough to offer any real comfort. You huddle together, eating the last scraps of your rations. A few men start muttering about something, about their families, about a life away from the pyramid, about the future. It's strange to hear these words. You've forgotten what freedom sounds like. Someone mentions a distant village near the Nile where there's rumor of a new temple being built. People dream of escaping to these places. Maybe they'll find work there. Work that doesn't involve lifting, hauling, sweating under the unforgiving sun. For a moment, you catch yourself wondering if there's any truth to these dreams. But then the overseer claps his hands and it's time to get back to work. You stand and shuffle toward the pyramid again. You have another block to lift. Another. Stone to place. The cycle doesn't break and you can't see an end to it. Just more sand, more sun, more stone. Every time you think the pyramid might be done, it grows a little higher, casting an even bigger shadow. And you're still there, at the base, hauling the weight. The morning comes too quickly, just like it always does. Your body protests, but your mind has long since surrendered to the rhythm of the work. The camp is alive with sounds of scraping, shouting, and the metallic clink of tools. But you feel an odd numbness now. Your exhaustion is no longer physical. It's more than that. It's a kind of emotional weariness, the kind that settles deep in your bones. Today's job: transporting stones from the quarry to the base of the pyramid. This is no small task. These are the big blocks, the ones that'll form the lower, more crucial sections of the pyramid. Your group has been given the job of moving them by any means necessary. You and your team march down the sloping terrain to the quarry. It's a place you've seen countless times, but today it feels different, like the land itself is pressing down on you. There's a low hum in the air, a distant buzz from the work already underway. The stonemasons and artisans are already at work, chiseling away, carving out the blocks, shaping them with precision. The overseer orders you to form 2 lines. One line of workers will be responsible for hauling the massive stones, while the other will prep them, checking the dimensions, smoothing the surfaces. You're in the first line, which means you're responsible for lugging the blocks up the steep incline. Great. The rocks are heavy. It's a given. But today, it's not just the weight of the stone that makes your heart race. It's the sheer size of the task ahead. You glance at the pyramid standing tall in the distance, growing by the day. It's humbling and a little suffocating. You're reminded again that this thing will outlast you. It'll stand long after you're gone. A sharp command rips you out of your thoughts. You grab a rope and attach it to one of the heavy stones. The block is rough and uneven, but you don't have time to worry about that. Every ounce of your being goes into lifting it, inching it upward with the rest of your team. The sweat pours off your back, stinging your eyes, but you can't stop. Not yet. Not until it's where it needs to be. As you pull, you feel the burn in your muscles, the sharp sting in your legs. Your body protests, but you keep going. The rope digs into your palms and your fingers slip with each tug. You stumble a bit, but someone behind you catches your shoulder, steadying you. For a moment, the world seems to blur as you focus only on the stone, the rope, and the next step. Then the stone moves. It shifts, and for a brief, magical moment, it feels like progress. But it's short-lived. The weight of it comes back, crushing you in waves. You look around. This is the same task you've been doing for what feels like a lifetime. Day in, day out. And yet somehow, the pyramid's growth feels as if it's never enough. It's the same relentless rhythm, the same insatiable demand for more. Almost there, one of the workers behind you grunts. You can hear the exhaustion in his voice, but you push forward. You're not alone in this. The pyramid looms ahead, an ever-present shadow. You're part of something larger than yourself, but in this moment all that matters is the block in front of you. The weight of it, the sweat, the aching body. It's all consuming, just as you think you can't lift it any higher. A hand clasps your arm and a grunt from the worker behind you pulls you back to reality. The block has been set into place. For a moment you stand there panting, letting the dust settle around you. Your muscles ache and your vision wavers, but there's a strange sense of accomplishment that comes with each stone placed. Even though you know the process will repeat itself endlessly, you stand back for a moment, wiping the sweat from your brow. The blocks are getting higher. The pyramid is slowly taking shape, but the work is never done. The stone masons are already moving on to the next section, the next block, the next layer. You glance up at the towering structure that seems to grow by the hour. There's a faint but real sense of pride in the air. This is what you've come to understand. The pyramid may be a monument to a king, to the gods, or even to the dead, but it's also a monument to the people who built it. Brick by brick, stone by stone, it's no easy task. The stones are heavy, the days are long, and the nights are too short to recover. And yet somehow you find yourself holding on to the idea that this work means something, even if no one will ever know your name, even if the pharaoh's name will be the only one etched into history. There's a connection to this monument that you carry with you. You are part of it, in a way that goes beyond the physical labor. You've helped create something that will stand the test of time, even if you won't be around to see it. As the day drags on, you see others beginning to drag as well. The fatigue is everywhere. The bodies that once moved with urgency now shuffle, their energy spent, their wills fraying. The overseer's voice is hoarse, his commands becoming more distant, more desperate. But you keep going, because what else can you do? Another stone is ready. Another layer of the pyramid waits. You push forward, step by step, block by block. The heat hasn't let up. It's always like this in Egypt. The relentless sun pushing down, merciless in its effort to make every living thing bow to its will. But today it feels even worse. Your body is so tired it feels like a stranger, a foreign thing that doesn't quite belong to you anymore. You ache, and yet you keep moving. It's all you've ever known. Another day, another stone. You're back at the quarry, but today something's different. The air feels thicker, the sand more suffocating. The blocks are growing larger, heavier. The work is harder, and your team is running out of energy. You've all been at this for months now, and the end still seems impossibly far. The pyramid is taller than ever, but so is the distance between you and any hope of rest. It's a cruel game, this building of empires. Faster, move it! The overseer shouts, his voice cracking like a whip. You'd almost think he's more tired than you. He looks like he's on the edge of collapse, but still, he pushes you, always pushing. You look up at the pyramid, towering. Above, the shape seems even more imposing today. It's a massive, angular force of nature, one that can never be ignored, never forgotten. It's a strange thing to be part of something so huge, so unyielding, and yet so dehumanizing. But the Pharaoh's dream has become your reality. You didn't sign up for this, no one did. But here you are, working beneath the scorching sun, doing your part to ensure this monument will outlast you. As the sun climbs higher, there's a sudden shift in the mood around the camp. Someone whispers about a visit from the Pharaoh's officials. An inspection, they say. You feel a shiver of unease. Is the Pharaoh displeased with the progress? Will they punish you for the days when your team couldn't move the stones as quickly? You can't help but worry. You've heard the rumors. The whispers about workers being punished for things they can't control. For missing a stone. For a block placed wrong. It's not unheard of for those who fail to meet expectations to disappear into the desert. You push the thought away. Focus. The work must go on. You grab a rope and prepare to lift the next stone, but your hands tremble. The block is heavy today, more than usual. It's as though the pyramid itself is demanding more from you. Every tug, every pull feels like an eternity. You've become so used to the weight, the repetition, that it's easy to forget that your body isn't built to carry this much, to work this hard for this long. Hold it steady. Someone calls out behind you, snapping you back to the present. You grunt, bracing your legs, fighting against the pull of the stone. It shifts in your hands. It's so heavy it feels as if it might crush you, or worse, slip off and cause a catastrophe. You don't dare let that happen. Your vision swims, and for a moment you wonder how much longer you can keep this up. You've seen others collapse from exhaustion, some in the middle of a task, others in the dead of night when sleep finally claimed them. It's always the same. Too tired to fight it, too weary to go on. Somehow the block is secured in place. Though your arms are shaking from the strain, you wipe the sweat from your brow and look up again. The pyramid looms even higher now, but the work never stops. The next block is already waiting. You wonder if the Pharaoh will ever be satisfied, if the gods will ever look down and say, yes, this is enough. But then you realize maybe they don't care about enough. Maybe this is the point. Maybe the whole thing is about more. Always more. You're part of a machine that's too big to stop, too powerful to resist. It's humbling, in a way. You are but a cog, a small piece in the grand design, yet your efforts are woven into the fabric of something timeless, something that will stand for thousands of years, long after your bones have turned to dust and your name has been forgotten. You look around. Some workers are gathering their strength for the next haul. Some are resting with heads bowed, eyes closed against the sun's glare. There's little to say. No words of encouragement, no pep talks, just the quiet understanding that tomorrow, the work will begin again. The cycle continues and you can't stop it. But there's a strange sense of peace in that. You've found your place here in the shadow of the pyramid. You are part of something that will endure even if your body can't, even if your mind falters. The Pharaoh will never know your name, but you'll be here always beneath the stones. And when you finally leave this world, your bones will rest here, beneath the shadow of the pyramid, just as the workers before you rest in their graves, forgotten but unyielding, silent witnesses to the grandeur you helped build. As the sun sets, the heat finally begins to ease. The sand cools under your feet, and the pyramid's silhouette sharpens against the fading light. You sit down, exhausted, feeling the weight of your labor pressing down on your chest. For a moment, everything is still, and in that stillness, you know it's true. The pyramid may outlast you, but you too will always be part of it, part of the legacy, no matter how small your contribution seems. and as the stars start to twinkle. Above you, close your eyes, knowing that even in the vastness of time you were here. You were part of this. As the darkness of the night settles in around you, there's a strange peace in the air. The harshness of the day slips away, and the desert is quiet, save for the soft rustling of wind against the sand. The weight of the stone you've lifted, the weight of the pyramid itself seems to fade, melting into the stillness of the night. You breathe deeply, letting the cool air fill your lungs, feeling the relief it offers. For the first time all day, there's no rushing, no pressure, just the soft comfort of the night sky above. The stars twinkle, a reminder of the eternal, of everything that's bigger than this world of stone and sweat. The journey of the workers, like you, is one of endurance, yes, but also one of quiet strength. The pyramid may never know your name, but you've left a mark that, in a strange way, will outlast the centuries. You are part of something that will endure, and as your body rests and the desert quiets, it's a moment to reflect, a moment to remember that sometimes it's not about the end but the enduring journey, and the quiet ways we shape history without ever realizing it. Now let the desert's quiet embrace wrap around you. Let your muscles soften, your breath slow, and as sleep tugs gently at the edges of your mind, know that you were here, and here you mattered. Sweet dreams.